Closed session. Can we get actually, hold on. We'll let Vicky do your thing.
I think we're okay.
Okay. Reconvening from closed session at 6:20. Sorry for being late. We got a lot on the agenda. Could we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Kalujerovic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
And for the record, he's also already confirmed that he has posted the agenda.
Yes.
And I don't know if we have a council member.
I'm present if you're looking for Councilmember Barrett, and I have, yes, present.
Thank you very much. And Mayor Pro Tem Nierenheim.
And did you, Councilmember Barrett, did you post your notice on the door outside publicly available?
Proudly so, yes.
Ooh, proudly so, with the American flag.
Proudly so. There's a probably so.
All right. You, sir, do we?
Proudly, not probably, right? Yeah, I was going to say.
Good closed session. All right. So do we have anything to?
Yes, a couple of announcements. One, Councilmember Barrett was present throughout closed session, as was Councilmember Obaji, as noted earlier. And under item F2, the case listed under that matter, the City Council did unanimously authorize the City Attorney to defend the city in that matter.
Fantastic. All right. Onwards to calling to order for a regular meeting on this overcast, cool, foggy day of Tuesday, April 11th at 6:22 p.m. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Kalujerovic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Still here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
And Mayor Pro Tem Nierenheim.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We are going to do a salute to flag and then a moment of silence directly thereafter. On three. 1, 2, 3.
I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
of the United States of America.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. And in the future, I got a great idea from a resident. We're going to try to get the youth commission to come down here from high schoolers and maybe lead us in the salute the flag and moment of silence, because they're coming down here in droves watching us run the city. All right, so moving forward, presentations, no checks to receive, no awards, no accolades, but we do have announcements from council members. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a quick change. I announced at the last meeting that the District 2 community meeting will be on Monday, April 24th, 6 p.m. on Zoom. The change isn't the date or the time. We will not have Edison there this go around. We will have two guests. One will be Greg Kapovich, our Waterfront and Economic Development Director, will be talking about what's happening down at the waterfront. Lots happening. And also will be joined by our new City Treasurer, Eugene Solomon, who will be talking about his plans for the office and the great things that office will be doing. So again, the 24th of April, 6 to 7:30 p.m. on Zoom. You can register at redondo.org under District 2. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Kalujerovic.
Kalujerovic.
Getting there.
Thank you. My community meeting will be on Zoom, Saturday, April 22nd, 9:30 to 11. And we're going to have Kelly Stroman with the Friendship Foundation talking about the campus, what's going on there. It would be great if by then they found the time capsule, but no promises. And then I wanted to thank Chief Hoffman and Mr. Wazansky, because April 18th, there will be a crossing guard assigned to Ralston and Lilienthal. So thank you.
All right. Councilmember Obaji.
I am still here in Reading, and we have submitted our case. The jury is deliberating. They didn't reach a verdict on the first day. Pose a couple questions. I did want to say, express thanks, and I'll be back soon. I'll be back to our community meetings. I'll schedule them at that time as soon as I'm done here, and I've been coming back on the weekend. But I did want to say thank you to many people, leaders and residents in Redondo Beach, because as you may know, as folks may know, I'm gearing up for my state bar trial. And I've been humbled by about over 35 sworn statements that folks have submitted from the legal community, Redondo Beach, longtime friends from college and high school. And specifically here in the city, I wanted to thank Mayor Pro Tem Nierenheim, Councilmember Lowenstein, Mayor Brand, Councilmember Barrett, Treasurer Eugene Solomon for their sworn letters of support. And while I may be a bit tired from this long trial and 6 weeks traveling up here, the response I've gotten even from my constituents in District 4 writing letters in for me has really strengthened my heart to continue to dedicate my time and efforts to improving Redondo Beach. And I do see that we do have a bright future ahead, and I'm energized by these new council members who just joined. So I look forward to continuing to serve for the next 2 years at least. And thank you for all of you for your support. That's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a reminder that I am going to have my first community meeting next Wednesday, April 19th, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center. So I look forward to it, and we'll see everybody there.
All right. Thank you. I had my in-person community meeting on Saturday morning at Alta Vista at 9:30 in the morning, bright and early. I want to thank Councilmember Barrett for coming down, and he got the third degree by the residents. District 1 is definitely a group of people who like to ask questions and get into details, as well as our city treasurer, Eugene Solomon, and they spent a lot of time with him. And so thank you to our city treasurer for that. And I'll be doing my online community meeting probably the week of the 17th, I think it is, 18th, 19th, right in there. Haven't set the date and time yet on that, but of course I'll be inviting everyone all over again, as well as you, Paige. Councilmember Obaji let me know that I've never invited him to one of my community meetings, so I will be doing that as well upcoming. So with that said, that's all I've got for now. Onwards to the agenda. So, agency recess. We don't have any agencies to recess today, correct?
There are none, but if we can go back to the approval of order of agenda first.
Approval. Yep. Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I get a motion to approve the order of agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Let's see. Agency recess, no agency recess, blue folder items. I believe we have 2 items in the blue folder.
We do. Under J1, public participation and non-agenda items, we had public communication submitted. And for N1, discussion and possible action regarding a feasibility study by the Consolidated Fire Protection District of Los Angeles County. I won't read the rest of the title if I may. There are 4 documents attached to the blue folder from the Consolidated Fire Protection District of Los Angeles County. Executive summary update, revised cost estimates, 2019 draft City of Redondo Beach reimbursement agreement, and City of Vernon, California fire annexation contract. That concludes items in blue folder attached.
All right. Can I get a motion to receive those to the record?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So that leaves us to consent calendar. We have only 8 items on the consent calendar. Thank you. If any members of the public want to come down and speak to any items on the consent calendar, you're more than welcome to. I will ask the City Council if they want to pull any of the items, which time we'll pull them and speak to them if we'd like. Councilmember Lowenstein.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Kaludjetovic.
H3. Pull H3.
H3. All right. Councilmember Obaji.
None. Thank you.
Councilmember Barron.
Yes, H3, H7, and H8.
All right.
H3, H7, and H. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve all items on the consent calendar except for items H3, H7, and H8?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All right. Any members of the public want to come down and speak to any of the items that we're not being polled? Going once. Going twice. Any Zoom comments for any of the items on there not being polled?
No one has raised their hand, and there are no e-comments either.
Okay. All right. All in favor of approving those items?
Aye.
Aye.
Anything to read on those?
There is nothing to read, no.
All right. We'll take it from the top. Items H3, payroll demand. Approve the following city council meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
No, it was pulled.
It was pulled, yeah. Councilmember Baji is going to pull that, or you pulled that.
I pulled it just to abstain.
Okay. Councilmember
As
Baji.
did I.
Okay, Councilmember Baji, you have made the motion. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And no noes, 2 absentations? All right, motion passes
Yes,
302.
I abstain.
Abstain, perfect, thank you, sir. Motion passes 302. All right, next item H7, which is the approve the third amendment to the funding agreement for LA County Metropolitan Authority for Grant Avenue Signal Improvement Project. Councilmember Barrett, you pulled this.
I did. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to make the point that the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Metro, is a client of my law firm, although neither I nor, to the best of my knowledge, my law firm currently represent or have done any legal work for Metro regarding this particular consent item. And I don't see any disqualifying conflict of interest presented here, and I haven't been informed by the city attorney that there is one. So I will participate in this agenda item.
All right, thank you. Is there,
I'll make a motion to approve H7.
Second.
okay, any members of the public want to come down and speak to this item? Any Zoom comments?
No,
E-comments?
no, sir. No
All right.
e-comments either.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No, passes unanimously. Thank you. Is there anything to read on that item?
No, there is not.
Okay. So that leaves us to item H8, Greg Kapovich. This is an amendment and restated agreement for special event services and revocable license for the use of real property, Beach Life Festival. Who pulled this item?
Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Barrett. Scott.
Yes. I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I this is Beach Life, as you pointed out, Mayor Pro Tem, and I just wanted Greg Kapovich, if he could and would, to just give a kind of a short explanation of this item and how we got to where we are and why this item is being proposed for approval.
Sure, no problem. Good evening, council members. For the record, Greg Kapovich, Waterfront Economic Development Director. We're actually really excited for this amendment. This is the Beach Life Festival for both events in 2023. It does a few things. For the city, it actually increases our recovery cost for police, fire, and public works services associated with the event for both events. It also increases the fee that we charge to rent the Seaside Lagoon facility, which goes directly into our tidelands and our uplands funds. For the producer, it actually provides him with 7 additional load-in days if he chooses to utilize those for an extra fee, which essentially allows him less of a time crunch to set up for the event itself. He also gets to use a portion of our parking garage for his employees during the event, and he gets to use the Joe's Crab Shack site, which is now vacant, the surface parking lot area, as a backstage area. So really a win-win altogether.
Do you have any questions on that, Councilmember Barrett?
No, thank you for that update and presentation, Greg.
Anytime.
Okay, and real quick, before you leave there, so everyone understands the hours are the same. It's going to be up until, was it 10:30 on Friday and Saturday, 9 p.m. on Sunday.
Correct.
And we are charging day use facility to $12,000 per day. So that's $36,000.
We're actually increasing it.
Oh, 15.
15,450 for the first event and a little more than 15,900 for the second event per day.
Right. And amplified sound.
And we are receiving cost recovery for use of the parking lots, both at the south end of Moldy as well as the parking structure and for utilization of the Joe's Crab Shack site. And any additional load in or load out day comes at the expense of $1,000 to the city.
We continue to work with the concert promoter to keep the speakers to an adequate level so that people aren't disturbed at night, especially. So.
And the rideshare pickup drop-off location will continue to receive the treatment it has at the most recent festivals, which I think has been more neighborhood-friendly than it was perhaps early on in the shows.
Thank you.
And $1,000 to the King Harbor Association, and my favorite, there is a 30-day blackout period on either side of the festival, but we have allowed for a Ragin' Cajun on PCH to have their
Rocktoberfest, yeah.
Rocktoberfest in the lagoon in October. So very excited about that. Community loves that event. All right.
Mayor Pro Tem, may I make a comment, please?
Yes, sir.
Sure. So just so the public knows, I think to Councilmember Barron's question, the Beach Life deal, the original Beach Life deal was negotiated before we were on council, before it was even known that Beach Life would be a success in Redondo Beach. And it wasn't fully accounting for all the stuff associated with it, like the cost of public safety. So since that time, it was first negotiated, I think back in 2019 or so, the city and the promoter, Alan Sanford, have continually negotiated, one-time or two-time deals that account for the changes that each needs, including a significantly higher public safety expenditure to make sure that we have police everywhere and fire everywhere that they need to be, as well as the public works build-up for it. So this is one more in that, another letter updating the terms for the next two events. But hopefully our goal is to reach a new deal that will certainly compensate, address everybody's needs for the long term. So that's all.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Motion approved.
Fantastic.
I'll second it.
All right. Any public comment on this? Anyone want to come down and speak for a second? Say hello.
Hi, Georgette Gantner, District 3. Welcome to everybody tonight. Just a question, besides the fees that are received on a daily basis, does the City of Redondo Beach get a percentage of tickets, box office?
Not currently.
So we'll answer that once you're done asking all the questions.
That's it?
Okay. The answer is no, we do not get a percentage of sales or a fee on each individual ticket. We just get a rental charge per day. That's what we've worked out, and a full cost recovery on that. Full cost recovery on public safety and public works. So any expenses that we may incur setting this event up and keeping it safe, public works, public safety, trimming the trees, we charge them for it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And yep.
Daniel Collins, District 1. Maybe you can expand a little bit on what you just mentioned there. So are you saying that aside from the costs that are incurred by the city, that's it? Like that's just basically our baseline is covered and then?
So we've got our baseline covered with actual cost, direct costs, and then we have a rental charge per day for the 3 days, $15,000 a day, plus the load in, load out fee, $1,000 a day for the Seaside Lagoon. And that could be anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000 on either side. And then we make the Golden Halo money.
I'd add to that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I know we're going to go with that.
Yeah. So we have a transient occupancy tax for the hotels. It's 1% on top of, well, it's 10%, but it's 12. That's 12 now? 12. Is it 12? Yeah. Okay. So the rates, the average daily rate goes up tremendously. Sometimes it doubles and more during that period. So we actually benefit from, as Mayor Pro Tem Bernheim said, a halo effect.
Yeah.
So we make a lot of money off of.
Yeah, a lot of people come in.
Yeah, and the hotels are sold out. The rates go up, from $200 to $400 to $600 to $800 a night.
Nice.
And so we actually benefit quite a bit, off 12% off, that it's quite a bit of money. So it's a good question to ask. We're always looking for ways to participate in the success of something like this. And that's one of the ways that we do benefit. And plus all the businesses around the sales tax, everything else, it does add a lot of value to the city.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thank you for answering.
Thank you.
And also in that item, it says that we rent out the parking spaces. That's additional income on top of what you just said.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exacto mundo. All right. Anyone else want to come down and speak in person? Anyone on Zoom want to come down and speak?
No one has raised their hand, and we don't have any e-comments on this item as well.
All right. Motion on the floor. There's a second. Anyone else want to speak? All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. It's passed unanimously. Nothing to read on that, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Brings me to my favorite topic, which is the non-agenda items. Make sure I'm right on that. Consent calendar, yeah. Public participation on non-agenda. So this is a 30-minute maximum window. It's 6:40. Let's say 6:42 right now. So 6:42. You get 3 minutes to speak. Speak on any topic you'd like, except if it's on the agenda. If only one thing on the agenda, hopefully you don't talk about that. We will stop you. We cannot answer. We cannot get into a discussion with you. We can ask clarifying questions, very simple, basic ones. Other than that, you get to speak one time for 3 minutes. Come on down. I have cards, actually. We're going to do orange cards first, then we do in-person, and then we go back, in-person, then Zoom comments, and then back to in-person. So Daniel Collins from Redondo Internet. Quality?
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead.
Don't worry about it. Hello again, Daniel Collins, District 1. Just wanted to come down and maybe bring to your guys' attention that there's been like a new ISP that's opened up in El Segundo recently. They're offering 10 gigabit down, 10 gigabit up for $50 a month. They're kind of challenging the current monoliths of ISPs, Spectrum and Frontier. And they do have plans to expand into Redondo. So I wanted to just make sure that the council was aware that this is happening, and hopefully maybe you guys can maybe reach out to them. I actually emailed the CEO today and I got a response within 2 hours. So he's very attentive, which is a bit different than most ISPs that we're dealing with. I'm born and raised here in Redondo. When I was a student at RUHS, we ran our own municipal internet. Yeah, BeachNet, 56K modem, provided to all the other local cities. And it was really cool. The year that I started was actually the last year that they did that, unfortunately, so I didn't get to participate that much. But then shortly after, fiber rolled out. Redondo was one of the first cities in the US that actually had like a decent fiber option. But now we're falling behind. Now, like my current bill for Spectrum, I pay $140 a month. It just went up $10. I get maybe 700 megabits down, 40 megabits up, and it's very spotty, has frequent issues. And we have the opportunity to maybe work with a company that's actually interested in investing in their infrastructure. And the result is that overall, residents can save $50, $100 a month on their bill. That's something that I think should be pretty popular across all districts, all walks of life. There may even be opportunity to work with maybe the state of California. They actually offer some programs and financing to provide internet to people who maybe are lower income. So there's a lot of potential opportunity here to explore. You may like if you're interested, I can provide you some other information and contact information for the company. It's called Sonic Net. And if you're interested, I can put you all with that. But I was actually my remaining time, I was going to suggest maybe the city of Redondo looks into maybe putting out a survey. We just spent $10,000 doing a survey on bikes down at the pier, which resulted in should we put in blinky signs or not. So I'm thinking maybe we could spend something similar to survey the rest of the residents and maybe ask them, how much are you paying for internet? What are you getting? Is it working? Are you having problems with it? And maybe look for areas of opportunity. I myself live in a location that right next door has fiber. I do not have fiber because I am one of the small sections that is serviced underground. Literally all of my neighbors get it, but I don't have it. So I think that if I'm having this issue, other residents are having an issue, and I think there's an opportunity for saving everybody a little bit of money and getting much better service.
Perfect. Nothing in a cable drop can't fix.
Thank you.
Network cable. Let me reach out to me. I have a question for you on some stuff. I believe T-Mobile is doing some trenching as well.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing trenching for fiber. All right. Wayne Craig. What? Yeah, Dan.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Wayne Craig, resident of District 1. I wanted to bring the attention of the council that on last Saturday night at the Elks Lodge at April 8th at 8 o'clock, the Elks Lodge usually has an annual awards dinner for our first responders. And it's been on hold for a bit due to COVID the last couple of years. But on Saturday night, what the recipients from Redondo Beach, our public safety people, were Captain Kenny Campos, who's here tonight. He was awarded as the first responder of the year for Redondo Beach. And in the police department, it was Detective, let me get the right name, Detective Patrick Knox. And I just want to acknowledge that our city we have a great city. We have some awesome first responders, and it's important that we acknowledge the hard work they put in every day. Basically, what they deal with every day is usually the worst days for most of us in our lives of something that's important that they need to respond to. They deal with that day in and day out, and it's important that we honor them and respect them. I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the council and say congratulations to the 2 honorees from this year. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, Nikki Negretti Mitchell.
Motion to receive and file.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Went to the COG meeting yesterday. Nikki Negretti Mitchell, District 3, founding member of Redondo Beach Quality of Life Coalition, representing 486 households along the Old Harbor right-of-way, managing partner of Right of Say, which also includes our little sister group, Lawndale's Gnome Village. So we went to the COG yesterday to the Transportation Committee meeting, and I just want to share some of the stuff that I shared with them, and then I'm going to elaborate on something else, or something, a part of it. We have major concerns over neighboring city government officials deciding on their preferences and making recommendations that impact Redondo Beach and Lawndale so egregiously when they do not have true and accurate factual information on the very real conditions of that land and environment. The entire city government in Redondo, the mayor, all of city council, the planning and public works commissions have all been in agreement over this. If you poll every citizen, you'll get 95 to 99% in favor of Hawthorne or nothing. You might come across a very small number, like a couple of old diehards with loud, pushy voices with an unexplainable attachment to the idea of building a train platform next to the cemetery where the manager and funeral director has already had to deal with the Gold Line debacle in Boyle Heights. Back then, the workers dug up what turned out to be unmarked graves with something like 264 old historic Chinese interments, which is human remains. At the turn of the century, Chinese were not allowed to be buried in the formal cemetery grounds. That was a 10-year nightmare dumped in the lap of the manager of the funeral home and the cemetery. Let's see. They have to bring in the cultural society, historical society. They have to check for DNA and look for descendants. When they make contact, they consult with the family. Then they don't have, when they don't, they have unidentified remains that they end up having to cremate. It finally ended 10 years later with a makeshift memorial ceremony and a formal apology to the Chinese community. All of the bad press marred that cemetery's reputation, and they took a lot of heat. And this is the same manager and funeral director that we have here now in Redondo at Pacific Crest. The draft EIR acknowledges an elevated probability of uncovering human remains adjacent to El Nido Park, since historically that used to be the cemetery. And this is behind my house in District 3. Since back then, there would be unmarked graves of those not allowed to be in the formal grounds. So there's also a very good chance of finding Native American artifacts and or remains, in which case tribal councils would be added to the list of who has to be involved. Pacific Crest is a big Redondo Beach stakeholder on the west side of the...
Extend a minute.
Okay.
All right, you want to close? No?
1 minute.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay, yeah, so Pacific Crest is a big Redondo Beach stakeholder on the west side of the right-of-way with cultural and historical significance. This is in District 4. I think we need to get behind Pacific Crest as a big stakeholder that cannot be subjected to this kind of disruption and bad press again. Let's make sure they don't have to go through that. I will forward their letter to Metro to Councilman Obagi and anybody else who may want it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, that is it for non-agenda items. Is there anyone? Oh, Mark Hansen, there you go. You read my mind. You already know what's going on.
Good evening, council and staff. Mark Hansen, wearing my hat as Staff Commodore of King Harbor Yacht Club this evening. I wanted to report to you that King Harbor Yacht Club held our opening day ceremonies on April 2nd. This is the 74th boating season for KHYC, which was formed in 1960 by the merger of two smaller clubs who then in 1964 built the clubhouse. Our guests included the Commodores from various SoCal sister clubs, ranging primarily from San Diego to Santa Barbara, as well as the leadership of various regional boating associations and several of our local angler clubs. Council member Todd Lowenstein represented Mayor Bill Brand in the city of Redondo Beach, providing updates on planned harbor improvements, which were met with a lot of appreciative applause. But I have to note that his biggest round of applause came when he talked about getting the dredging done. So he knows how to play the audience. We received a proclamation from the city that congratulated our club for winning the Senior Yacht Club of the Year award from among 88 boating clubs in the Southwest U.S. Several individual club members were acknowledged for receiving regional boating awards. One very familiar to you all, of course, is Julie Call, who won the regional award for supporting women's boating. Senior staff from the city was well represented by Fire Chief / Harbor Master Pat Butler and Deputy Public Works Director Mike Klein, who were very well received for all of their efforts and their staff efforts in first protecting and then helping us rebuild the harbor after the recent storms. LA County Representative Jesselyn Waldron represented Supervisor Holly Mitchell presenting a proclamation. The offices of Congressman Liu, State Senator Allen, and Assemblyman Marisucci all sent certificates recognizing the club's contributions to regional boating activities. Our local water safety professionals were well represented by the city's Harbor Patrol, the county's Baywatch lifeguards, and the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. The U.S. Naval Sea Cadets, again, provided the color guard in their very well-pressed naval uniforms. Those kids look sharp. So spring's here, it's warming up. There's increased boating activity in the harbor. Most notably, in 2 days, we start the Thursday night twilight races, and the community is encouraged to contact us and volunteer to come out in a real sailboat race. Of course, there's also a lot of paddling activities and fishing opportunities down at the harbor. So for the public listening, come on down and enjoy your harbor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wants to come down and speak?
Georgette Gantner, District 3. I'm not sure if the city has received this. A friend of mine lives in Torrance, and he had received, and this is for everybody to see on camera, it's an opportunity for the people of Torrance to give their opinion on one of 3 options regarding the Green Line. And I'd like permission to submit.
We have motion. Second. Anyone opposed?
I just thought it was interesting because they have the 3 options, 2 of which include the right-of-way, proposed project which would be on the surface, another one would be in the trench, and then the third one is alongside Hawthorne. The map was a little bit hard to read. I swear I'm going to drive that thing in my car and try to figure out, okay, where are they talking about exactly? Because if it doesn't work one way, I'm going to think of something else. I don't know. I want it to work. But of course, it is contentious for some. But I just thought it was interesting that they would submit this to the citizens. I know you can't talk, but are you guys familiar?
I haven't seen it personally myself. Maybe Councilmember Bosch, you can speak to it directly.
I have seen it.
Okay.
I have a clarifying question for you, ma'am. Does it say on there that they'll complete the metro by 2028 for the Olympics, or say anything about the Olympics on there?
Not that specific. It's just something to send to the citizens to ask them what they would prefer. That's all.
Okay.
I didn't see anything on there about dates. So I just thought I'd share that because a friend just told me about it today. I said, oh, bring it to me so I can bring it to you guys.
Take a photo of it and send it to us, maybe the clerk of the council or something.
have a copy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, here you go.
I submitted a
Right
copy
there.
of it.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. You're so. All right. Anyone else want to come down and speak on agenda items? All right. Zoom.
Yes. Nancy Skiba?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council and staff. I wanted to mention a really wonderful program that the City of Redondo Beach Police Department puts on called the Citizen Police Academy. And it provides members of the community with a working knowledge of the police department, along with roles and responsibilities of its officers. The goals of the program are accomplished through lectures, hands-on training, demonstrations, and a ride-along with a police officer. I really recommend it. It's quite excellent. The teachers are really wonderful. It's a lot of fun. And that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Holly Osborne.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I also gave a speech yesterday at the South Bay COG Steering Committee, and I'm just going to tell you what I said. I said, good afternoon, and I'll mail you the comments. My name is Holly Osborne. I live in North Redondo Beach, District 5, 1 block from Lawndale and within walking distance of the row. 2 months ago, the South Bay COG had a guest speaker, David McNeil from the Baldwin Hills Conservancy, who talked about bringing parks to the people by finding opportunities to preserve open green spaces in crowded urban areas. I watched the COG meeting on Zoom and I thought this is the absolute perfect person to talk to about making the row a green space in Lawndale. Because I had months ago read the county's park report on Lawndale and the desire of Lawndale to be able to have that as a green space. So anyway, I contacted Mr. McNeil about the row situation and asked if he had any ideas about keeping the row a green space and would he like to come down and see it. And I have never had anybody respond so quickly to an email. He explained that although Lawndale was outside his area, he would like to come and see it. And long story short, he came with his assistant on March 15th. It had been raining, but fortunately it stopped just as he arrived. There were several Lawndale residents of the row who came as well, including their representative from Right of Say, who was the key speaker on the tour. Mr. McNeil said he had worked with abandoned corridors, turning them into parks, but not one that still had a freight train. So safety would be a primary concern, and he did understand about de facto parks. But he had an even bigger vision about connecting to the Redondo portion of the right-of-way as well. So we only walked as far as the Artesia Bridge, but his assistant went out on the trestle to take pictures. And I will say that when Mr. McNeil saw all the pipeline markers, he said, why would anyone want to build here, referring to Metro's plans. I also want to say that because it's been so wet, we ended up walking on the tracks because they were dry. The row has some drainage gutters on the side to drain off water, and they were full. At a subsequent meeting of Lawndale residents, one of them said that if Metro did build something and paved over, it would have to provide all the row residents with sump pumps. So I hope the elected officials that are here can keep this open space vision in mind. And if you want to come see the row with the trees and the green space and where it narrows and all the pipeline markers, please get in touch. And Mr. McNeil just sent me information on the contact person for the Rivers and Mountain Conservancy, because that's the one that covers the area for Redondo and Lawndale. Okay, so I'm going to send you my remarks so you can have them for receive and file. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Osborne.
I have no one else on Zoom, and there are no e-comments for this item.
All right. Last request for the evening ends for non-agenda. For non-agenda, would you like to speak on non-agenda, on items not on the agenda? Yes. 3 minutes. Come on down. as long as it's not on the one item we have on the agenda.
I want to be heard.
You can be heard. All right, there's a microphone. 3 minutes a time.
Okay. I live in the city of Inglewood. For the past couple of years, I have experienced something and I can't explain, but my left leg have shrunk about 2 or 3 inches, and I honestly don't know why.
Okay.
I've been evicted of the former apartment I used to live, and I am under extremely depression. So I don't know if I'm being poisoned or what, but my left leg doesn't touch the ground anymore. And I wasn't born that way. Yeah, extremely odd.
Bad.
And I go to different police stations, and nobody seems to care to take my report.
I'm sorry, which city do you live in now?
Inglewood.
Inglewood, okay.
Okay. There's health clinics that you can go to for that?
No, I want a judge. Are you a judge?
No.
Oh, what is this?
City council meeting?
Okay, so what can I do? What do you guys recommend I should do legally?
I would recommend you go to an urgent care or hospital to go get that checked out. That's all we can do. It's not on the agenda. We can only, as far as I get into the conversation, this is not an agendized action, so we can only hear.
What about an investigation or a report?
Yeah, we can't get into that detail, but you can talk to the police officers and file a report with them.
In the city?
Yeah.
Is there a judge? Not here
No.
at the moment? Really? Oh, wow. Well, thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
Hospital, right? Well, I've been to 3 hospitals, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And no, I don't think accurate diagnosis. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I'm being poisoned.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, I think it's more than sorry.
Yeah.
Do you guys have access or a business card that I can see or call to build a case or
I don't.
talk
You
to a
can maybe go to the
judge or
police station.
lawyer?
You can go to the police station, maybe file a report and speak to them. And they're right across the way, right over there.
Okay. Well, I already spoke to a female a couple of days ago. I think it was on Saturday. And she said I need to go back to Inglewood. But I've done that, and they don't take my report there.
Yeah. I'm not
So
sure.
you're saying if I go there now, they will take my report?
I'm not sure what the process is. This is city council. We deal with items on the
Are
agenda.
you an officer of the law?
No, I'm not.
City council. What is that exactly?
We got 19 seconds. And we got to move on. We're an elected body who runs the city, makes decisions, keeps the city moving.
And you guys cannot make a decision in what I just said.
Nope.
Just in Redondo.
Sorry. Just sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Sorry to hear that. All right. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right. That concludes our non-agenda items at 7:04. And we are now onwards to, I believe it's the main event. Let me check, make sure I'm not missing anything. All right. So this is our main event, item N1. This is a discussion with possible action regarding a feasibility study of a consolidated fire protection district of LA County Fire Department for provisioning fire, life, health, and safety services. We've been through this kind of once before. This is a long-term item. And see, Mr. City Manager Wazansky.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I will be giving the opening remarks tonight. They will be fairly abbreviated. A little bit of housekeeping. I've got dealing with a little bit of an eye issue this evening, so for the record, I'm neither sad nor angry as I'm giving this report tonight. Just dealing with that. I want to thank Chief Butler for preparing much of this information this evening, and Pat will be here if you have any specific questions that might arise. I want to thank the county for their work and continued discussions with us on preparing the first phase of the feasibility study. As you mentioned, Mayor Pro Tem, we have been contemplating this item for many years. As I thought through what we might present to you this evening in a specific PowerPoint or a description of our current service model here in Redondo Beach or how our department operates, really what struck me is tonight isn't and I want to make this point clear, tonight is not a policymaking call. Tonight is not the deliberation on whether we should be retaining our Redondo Beach Fire Department or moving and transitioning to work with the Los Angeles County Fire District. It is really a discussion about process and analytics and determining how we want to ultimately continue and conclude a study that has started and stopped on a couple of different occasions and continues candidly to sort of hang around in a way that I think at best is distracting and at worst sometimes creates consternation in how we do business here in town. It is my recommendation and Chief Butler's recommendation that the council proceed with the two studies that have been identified here tonight. First, the completion of the feasibility study that was initiated by the county in the first phase, and move forward with a reimbursement agreement that will allow the county and properly reimburse them for their time for the follow-up work that ultimately ensues with the phase 2 review, a survey of our facilities, and ultimately determination of the cost to convert to district service. It is also our recommendation that the council pursue a third-party consultant to objectively review both the city's current operating model and cost, as well as the county's proposed operating model and cost. We have identified in our report 3 consulting firms that perform this type of work. They're all qualified firms. Our recommendation would be that you direct us to pursue an abbreviated request for qualifications from these firms and perhaps others that might be interested, and a cost from them formally to perform this work, and return that material to you for consideration at your first meeting in May. Our recommendation as it pertains to the phase 2 analysis and the reimbursement agreement with the county would be that you direct us to proceed in ultimately processing that agreement and return at the next available council meeting, if possible, next Tuesday, if not, May 2nd, to formally execute that document to allow that work to occur. As I mentioned, tonight is not, in my view, a night to debate the two organizations and their pros and cons. That is naturally what happens or seems to happen. We talk about this, and it's in large part why we tend to stall. This issue is worth running to ground, to use an analogy. The determination as to whether or not our fire services and emergency medical response should be performed by our staff within our own department through a city organization or the county is a generational decision, a very important decision that I feel should be made with complete information based on facts and true objective metrics, and to the extent possible should be devoid of emotion, right? That's the goal, is to make as qualified and objective a determination as we can. And I think the best way for us as a community and as ultimately a council to make that decision, we need all of the facts. And I think the best way to obtain all of the facts is to proceed with both of these documents, the reimbursement agreement and then ultimately a third-party contract. I think at the conclusion of that information and after obtaining that, we will be in an optimal position to properly evaluate the two options and determine for our community what is ultimately the desired form of service, both now and into the future. So if you have specific questions about what sort of service we provide currently at our various stations and the number of units, and what form they take, or what is provided in the county's proposed costing, we can answer them this evening. We have representatives from the county. Acting Deputy Chief John O'Brien is here, I believe, to help provide specific response as it pertains to phase 2 and what that would entail once we execute the reimbursement agreement. Pat has done a lot of research as it pertains to third-party consultants to determine the type of work that's provided typically for this type of review and can answer specific questions there. If you're interested, this is also an opportunity for the council to provide some direction on the scope of work that would be provided by those third-party firms. As the council is aware, we have $60,000 in the budget. It was appropriated this year to cover that cost and that work. We also have $30,000 appropriated to cover what is estimated to be a $24,000 reimbursement agreement with the county to perform the phase 2 review. That's really it. I think tonight is most constructive as we focus on the process and determining ultimately how we arrive at developing the best, most objective analytics and metrics we can to properly evaluate what is a very important decision for this community and a very critical policy decision of the City Council. That concludes my remarks. We're here if you have any questions.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have a few questions. Before I move,
I know your question is going to be, and I cannot for some reason indicate if anyone else is requesting to speak on the dais tonight. I'm not sure why, I apologize. But I will tell you that Councilmember Obaji would like to speak.
Okay.
Is that what you were going to ask me?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to ask you next. All right. Thank you. So my opening remarks on this, I do have a little bit of a PowerPoint I want to kind of show to residents. I think it's important to show the history of where we've come from and, you know, thank everyone that's been involved on this for such a long time. It's a very important issue to our community. And I want to thank the county for coming down and taking the time. So you guys brought a lot of brass, a lot of uniform. Thank you. And our city staff for spending the time and making this happen. Councilmember Obaji.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was actually going to ask who the brass were in the audience because I could see them when people were speaking at the dais. But if there's anything that the county folks would like to say, address to us, by all means, feel free to come on up. Or maybe if the mayor, I don't know, the Mayor Pro Tem when you want them to speak.
Yeah, we'll have them introduce themselves, actually. Why don't you guys come on up and introduce yourselves so we all know. And we know the quality level questions we can ask you guys. Go from there.
Perfect.
Sir, Chief?
Yeah, I'm Acting Chief Deputy John O'Brien. I am the Acting Chief Deputy over Emergency Ops for the County of Los Angeles Fire Department. With me tonight, I brought our Central Region Deputy Chief William Mayfield, Chris Snee from our Planning Division, who does all the behind-the-scenes work in putting these packets together and cost estimates, and then Assistant Chief Brian Bennett. He's our Assistant Chief over Division 1. If Redondo was ultimately to make that decision and come forward, he'd be the Assistant Chief over this area.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Thank you. All right.
We'll be asking more questions, so don't go too far.
Copy that.
All right. So I won't ask a ton of questions tonight because this isn't the decision as to whether to go to county or not. This is like the city manager said. This is just the diligence in gathering the information so that the community and we can make an informed decision at some point. The reason why I think it's important. Well, actually, before I go there, I'd like to say that I'm so impressed with the tremendous progress our fire department has made in a short period of time under interim Chief Butler, previously under acting Chief Kaufman, since the assessment was done. I mean, when I got elected as city council member, we were waiting on this assessment to be done with Joe Castro, and it came down, and I just thought, I looked at this packet and like, oh my goodness, our fire department is in shambles. And to see now that the ethos, I see the firefighters at Sprouts getting the groceries. I see them, all over. I live right next to the fire station too. And to see that their ethos is strong, that they feel finally like the city council is listening to them. We're getting them the resources they need. When their truck goes down, that we just replaced it last week with another $1 million truck. That is awesome. And also to hear from the community that they're receiving a fast response in the fire department. They cannot say enough about how much the fire department has helped them at a stressful time in their lives and help them with their kid or whatnot. So I'm very proud of our Redondo Beach Fire Department. And there's nobody who just wants to willy-nilly drop this fire department and move into a different fire district without serious consideration. So that's what I wanted to start with. Is I'm very proud of how we prioritize our public policy as it concerns the fire department in the last 2 years under our council, and I'm sure going forward. The reason why it's important to go to phase 2 and conduct this study with the state, with the county, is because I've heard when I was knocking on people's doors relative to my predecessor's recall, I would just say, look, there was a phase 1 study. It showed potential savings. And our council member voted against going to phase 2 for $24,000 to find out the real detail as to how much could it save the city and what would be the impacts to our fire response if we went to the county. And people were willing to sign on the line at that time because people do not like their elected officials to shortcut due diligence when it comes to public safety, and certainly not for political reasons. So that's one. Number two, the firefighters asked us to do three things. The Redondo Beach firefighters asked us to do three things. One, implement the changes called for in the assessment. Two, look at a three-city collaboration with El Segundo and Manhattan Beach where we can do some cost savings, maybe by sharing division chiefs. That so far nothing's come to fruition from that. Maybe because our city schedules don't line up as far as contracts go. Three, complete the fire assessment with the county. Our firefighters are happy in Redondo Beach, but they also want to know once and for all, are we staying Redondo Beach or are we going to county? And this is the one item that's going to help us make a final determination on that subject. And rather than saying at this point, oh no, let's pull the plug, $1 million or $2 million or $4 million, whatever the number, the delta is between the county costs and our costs, isn't enough to justify going to phase two. Let's complete the process. So if we do say no, or we do say yes, there's a clear record as to why. And I don't want some politicians, other electeds in our place, 10 years down the line, going down this path again and creating uncertainty for our Redondo Beach firefighters all over again as to where they're going to be working, where they're going to be putting their heads down at night when they come to work. So that's why I am in favor of going to phase two, and I'm going to recommend adopting all staff's recommended actions with regard to the consultant and moving to phase two. And I thank the county for being here. That's all.
Okay. All right. Can you share my screen?
Yes. Which,
1A, please.
it doesn't indicate a
Yeah, I gotta
device.
plug it in.
Let's see here. 1A. There you go.
Perfect. Uh-oh, let me turn the listening off. I'm not sure why that's on.
We're good. Oh.
I don't even know why it's on. The closed caption. Where's closed captioning? Microphone. Microphone's off. Sorry, 1 second. Never had this problem before. Record. Stop. Well, we'll just live with it.
It's good for ADA reasons.
There you go. Good for ADA reasons. There you go. Handicap accessibility.
All right.
Okay. I did put listen, I want everyone to understand this is a very complicated subject. We've been at this for many, many years. If you can't hear me, you can read me. First of all, I just want to thank our Redondo Beach Fire Union, and this gentleman here is Greg Allen. I'm going to give a quick history on this. When I came in 2017, I wasn't endorsed by the union, and it was a hard-fought battle. It was fun. We had lots of fun on the campaign trail. But when Greg took over, he immediately called me and said hello and said, "Hey, I want to reestablish a relationship with you guys," and we did that. And that relationship, Campbell's, you've done a phenomenal job at fostering that and changing that relationship. The department itself is different primarily because of the union leadership and the members themselves. And of course, I can't go without thanking the executive leadership that we have in our team right here, City Manager Mike Wazansky. It's been an enormous change in the last 2 years. We've had a fire department assessment done by our former police chief right here. I'll get into that in a second. There's a lot here. It's our second largest department, $25 million, plus or minus how you want to look at it. What are we looking for here in this community? We're looking for safety, value, and response time. That's kind of what I've gotten boiled down from what we want in our fire department. And that's really those things are boiled down into assets, operations, and personnel. And you'll see as we move forward here in this slideshow and kind of some facts that I've just uncovered in fact recently yesterday. And in fact, I'll step back and thank our city manager. I took a tour of all the 2 fire stations with our city manager yesterday. I did a tour of all 3 fire stations with our labor union a few weeks ago. And it was eye-opening. I had never stepped foot in some of these fire stations before. In fact, fire station number 3, I was actually refused entry in a couple years ago. And it's a remarkable change because this study is about these things, what you see right up here. Yeah, we can spend $100 million in our fire department, but what's the value we would get out of that? Would we get increased response times? Would we get better safety, better assets? Just so everyone knows, this was on our strategic plan in 2018. That's how it first got here. We asked for this first phase assessment in 2018. I believe it came back to us in January of 2019, I believe, January, February. I was at the ICA conference, Independent Cities Association conference up in Santa Barbara with Councilmember Lowenstein, Mayor Brand. And that's when we first got word of the item, the phase, or the study, first study coming back. Then we heard it in August of 2019 as a council meeting. And there were some flawed data points and flawed analysis. For instance, one of the things that said in there was that the workers' comp wasn't analyzed correctly and that there would be 0 raises for employees. We know that's not true. We just had an 11% raise for the fire department a few months after that. In 2019, 2020, we had directly thereafter, we had some cuts in the fire department because of COVID. We went right into COVID. And that left us with only 3 people on our ladder truck of 4. And I fought hard to prevent those cuts from happening. I fought really hard, found every opportunity I could, talked to a lot of people, and ended up not voting for the budget. But the point here is we went from 4 people on our ladder truck down to 3. And you'll see what kind of cut that actually was. And I didn't realize, I thought it was a 25% cut because it makes sense, right? From going from 4 down to 3. But the assessment correctly pointed things out. So then what leads us to the assessment a little bit later on, right here. This assessment, this large document, our former police chief turned to fire chief, did kind of both for a while, and then just was a fire chief, interim fire chief. And he worked with Joe Castro and from LA City Fire to put this document together. Fantastic work, a lot of work. And you'll see in this that you can't legally cover so much. Then you have kind of the rebuilding phase. This last year that we had, we put people back last budget season and this last budget season and before that, we had kind of a rebuilding phase. We were putting services and supplies back into the coffers. And of course, we were putting the 4th person back onto the ladder truck. And this is really important because that's a $600,000 ask or get or cost. Every firefighter is roughly $200,000. A position is 3 people, right? So you have to multiply that by 3, right? Now we are in 2023 and we're looking at moving forward. We've implemented a lot of this assessment right here. Done a fantastic job. We have a lot of energy, a lot of positive movement moving forward. We have a new council up here as a whole. As Councilmember Baji had mentioned, we've done a phenomenal amount of work. These are the things that this assessment really did cover, and it covered them well. Talked about the community, talked about training, surveys, call volume, structural change, concerns that the public and more importantly, the employees had internally. And a lot of these were fixed and were changed, but we're still on the path forward to change these items because it's not done. We're nowhere near done. As Councilmember Baji said, when he came in 2021, he saw that a lot more needed to be done. So that leads us to this item here. What did the assessment forget to cover or not cover, not have enough time to cover? This is really important because it's like this is one of the driving factors for us moving forward, what we're going to be doing. Number 1 is equipment, lifespan of our apparatus and replacement cycles. Do we have the proper replacement cycles in place, proper amount of equipment? Stations, you'll see here in a couple of slides what our quality and feasibility of the use of our stations are. The county's going to come in and they're part of phase 2. They're going to see what they're going to require moving forward in order to, if they were to move forward, what they would require to be able to move in, have their personnel move in. Programming, so documentation of training, true documentation of training moving forward. Fiscal controls, real planning for the future in terms of what we're doing. We talked a minute ago, Councilmember Baji talked a few minutes ago about $1 million fire truck. That'll come up again as to why that's important. We had to put $600,000 of extra money into to pay for that. It wasn't planned for. Disaster preparation, you know, I see the city a lot of times solving small town or big town problems through small city thinking. And we need to change that focus and work with our partners, people like FEMA and other cities, other districts, because every dollar we don't have to pay out of our own general fund is a dollar we can spend on something else. Our budgets are complicated. You'll see here, I have a document I spent over the course of the last few weeks, going back all the way to 2010, pulling down the budgets. They're all available on the website, looking at the actual. So you have a proposed budget and you have the actual that you actually spend. And it's interesting to see some of the data that I found here in the last few weeks. But you can see here the needs that we have, long-term and short-term, the value, what we're trying to balance out, and then, of course, contingency. Public safety is about contingency. When you call 911, you want someone to show up on the other side and help. You're not going to get a phone call back and say, sorry, we got to get some gas real quick, blew a tire or something. We'll be there in a few minutes. Apparatus lifespan. We just bought a new fire engine. You know, I've learned a lot these last couple of days. It's something that I actually had really no depth of knowledge on until I'd say the last few weeks, because on this last agenda, we bought a $1 million fire truck. You know, frontline firefighting engine, 10 years, a relief position, you can move that back 5 years, and then a reserve for 5 years. The engine we just replaced was 22 years old. Repeat that one more time, 22 years old. That's how old our oldest engine, our relief engine was. So this is what we have currently, a 25-year lifespan. So that's, you know, stretching things thin. And as I talked to the city manager a few days ago, the last few days, you know, that's as a result of us extending out our vehicle replacement fund for vehicles and moving them, drawing them out. And this is the situation you get into. Actual budgets, I don't know if you know well, you can see that at home, but you know, going back to 2010, I looked at the total budget for the city, rounded it out, showed the difference of the year before, the total fire budget for that year, total percentage of the budget, and then looked at the percentage increase. And what you'll notice here is in 2020, the significant change of actual revenue versus actual cut to the department. And it was a significant cut, a massive cut. Of that $3 million, I'd say probably about 600,000 or so was the ladder truck. Thank you. And there's some other cuts that we made. But if you notice quickly, the year after, we spent another $2.4 million. So being able to move that around is important, but understanding over long-term what are the trends, which kind of shows me to this trend here. We used to have 68 personnel in our fire department. Was it 68? What was it? 68, yeah, 68 in the fire department. We're at currently 67, I believe now. What's the other one say? 67, you're right. 59 sworn, or 50, yeah, around there. And that's what our budget is. So you can see the dip. You can see the orange line on top is the city revenues, and the dark orange is the fire department budget. And if you charting the actual versus personnel, this is actually the fire department budget. You can see the dip in 2021 there, Even though that money came back, we didn't resurrect the personnel. It didn't happen until this year. I will say as a caveat, 21-22, we don't have the actuals yet. So this is the quote that I pulled out of the assessment. So by removing one firefighter from the company, they have effectively cut their initial firefighting manpower by 50%. What does that mean? That means you have 2 firefighters, you have an engineer who drives the truck, and you have the captain who's in charge. Well, you took the one firefighter off, you've now reduced the ability of that ladder truck by 50%. So when they show up on scene, if they need to actually do something, they actually have to wait as per the standards for another person to show up on scene. That's actually was eye-opening when I read that in this assessment. It was actually very informative as to, when we make decisions up here, how those decisions actually impact frontline and public safety. I think this is a really key part moving forward right here, something that is not talked about at all. Our first fire station in Redondo Beach was built in 1908, and it was in service until 1959, 1960. Our second fire station was built in 1936, went out of service in 1960. The fire stations came in, the new ones we're currently using, in 1960. 54 and 44 lifespan years. Look at where we're currently at with our current fire stations, 63 years old for both of them right now. So we're at well over 10 years, or almost 10 years, over what we are for the old stations. And of course, the Harbor Patrol building was in place for 32 years. The county helped us pay of that 1.8 million, 650,000 roughly speaking, 10 years ago it was completed, Harbor Patrol. That station itself needs work too. I'm bringing this up for this. I want the public to see. This isn't easy, it's difficult for the show, but I want people to see, we spend a lot of money on infrastructure here in Redondo. It's roads, parks, we pay our employees well, we try to, and we're always pushing the ball forward. But the infrastructure tends to be forgotten. City Hall here, yeah, we've redone this council chambers, but that was done with certain funding that came from the video that you're watching at home. The reason I'm showing this picture here is because that easement, the eave that you see there, that had water pouring out of it a year ago in April 2022. The roof is leaking. Things need to be replaced. It's a 64-year-old station. These are the bathrooms. This is the showers. This is the sink. This is what we are having our personnel work in. I personally, the reason I'm showing this, the reason I'm making this point is I don't want our personnel, our employees to be working in this. When I first saw this, I didn't realize it was to this level, to this degree. I have a great respect for our fire employees, and the fact that they've stuck with us and are doing what they're doing, I think is amazing. And they really do receive accommodation. And this is Fire Station 1 that you're seeing here on the left. Fire Station 2 is in much better shape. But I also want to be clear that this is a problem that other cities with their own fire departments are also seeing in real time. And we'll see that with some of these pictures, what other cities are doing in order to do that. This is how awesome our employees are. This is what's called the equipment room in Station 2, excuse me. They did all this work themselves. They used some city funds to pay for some of the equipment and other items, but they did all the actual work themselves. It's nicely painted. It's a workshop. They take care of their equipment. They have immense amount of pride. This is their workout room. This is immense amount of pride that they have at Station 2. And the reason why I'm moving forward with this and I'm finding so hard, I'm looking at all this, going into such detail, spending the time, is because I want to be able to reciprocate that pride. Going down to the harbor, hopefully this works, right? This is a pier piling down in the harbor. Yes, that is me moving that concrete pier piling with my hands. That is actually physically shaking from my hands. Yes, we are actually replacing that here in the next few weeks, so no worries, it's all going to be done, taken care of. But it shows you, we have a lot of infrastructure in this city that we need to fix and we need to move forward on. And no, for those of you thinking Senator Cal would not have been, or Robbie Waterford would not have been fixing this. This is our responsibility outside the scope. So I know somebody was going to say that. I actually had one more photo of the docks, but I guess I don't. All right, I don't have it in there. The docks themselves, I'll just say, need tremendous amount of work. We're redoing all of that too. We're going to be looking at our partners down there to maybe help us out in the future for these dock repairs. We have LA County Fire Department lifeguards, Baywatch Redondo down there. We have, what is it called? The Fish and Game shows up. Other departments show up. So this is showing your fire station cost. 1980s. 30, 40 years ago was $50, $60 a square foot to build a new fire station. Today, we're $190 to $250 for a new fire station. And there's a lot of requirements that you have nowadays to build a fire station. Extremely strict codes and guidelines that make you adhere to the highest and strictest forms of workplace safety. So what does that result in? Here's Long Beach Station 9, $8.3 million, built in 1938, approximately 3,800 square feet, due to issues with water penetration beginning in 2003 and subsequent history of active mold at the facility. They cleared out there, they took it to the ground and completely rebuilding it. Long Beach had Measure A funds, which is a special tax, I believe, and combining that with some general funds as well. Station 14, $1.1 million for simple remediation of single dorm rooms, improved restroom facilities, and repairs to other facility systems. So basic repairs, still $1.1 million. Manhattan Beach, Station 2, our neighbors, built in 1954. In 2017, architectural firm consulting the study staff report cost $9.7 million, primarily came out of general fund to redo, and then they used roughly $1.7 million of COVID relief funds to do some operational movement of backfill some money, some activities there. But that's their Station 2. Their Station 1 was redone for an even larger price, far larger price, 30, 40 million right in there, I think 40 million. But that included the police station and City Hall, other services as well. And you'll see that in other cities, putting stations together with other services. Riverside County North Shore, $11.1 million for this station. Highlighting the quote in red, I'll just read it out. It's a terrible station, Weiser said. The roof is coming apart. The equipment is sitting outside because the apparatus, fire engines, cannot fit into the old building. They talk about in these articles that I found about how it's so expensive they're putting off other infrastructure projects. So they're making a real commitment to move forward. Hermosa Beach Station number 1. This one is just a renovation, simple renovation of 5 dormitories, 2 ADA accessible restrooms, an office, remodeled kitchen, HVACs, and new lighting. Exterior changes, including tinted and retrofitted windows, newly designed landscaping. $2.1 million this cost the city of Hermosa Beach. County took over that. And I'm highlighting that because when we had this decision in August of 2019, some comments were made by some people about the county coming in and being either more expensive, worse response times, and a whole host of other comments that were made. This email right here is from Mayor Stacy Armato, who emailed literally the next day at 12:55 p.m. putting together this list of items. And I just want to highlight, they ended up saving money by, instead of spending $14.7 million, they spent $2.1 million. So instead of redoing the whole station, they were able to find a way to not redo it. They improved their response times, and they are very happy today with what they're doing. I'll go over this real quick. Newport Beach Station number 2, $6.7 million plus land acquisition. It's a smaller station. San Carlos, a city up north, $13 million. All it is one engine and a backup space for another engine. That's all it is. Response times is very important. This is our response times, 5 minutes, 7 seconds. Very good. We're doing a great job. We should be very proud of it, as the assessment said. There's certain standards that we live by, NFPA standards, but I want to get everyone to make sure everyone understands that you can't simply say a time and hold that. Response times are very complicated. It depends. They're basically based off of who shows up on scene first, when's the supporting units coming in, where are they coming from, where your station's at, what time of day, time of night. It gets very complicated very quickly. So that's not really a true assessment. If you look at the assessment here, it goes over that very nice, in a very nice manner. Councilmember Obagi talked a minute about ways moving forward. So why we're going through these exercises, we need to understand, are we going to go this alone, on our own, as a community, make a real commitment to our fire service members, and not have them live and work in the conditions that buildings that they are, create a South Bay Fire District, or work with other fire agencies here in the South Bay, or go down the path of a county option. And to that point, we have our 2 fire stations here. It shows you concentric circles that go out to the furthest part of each station here. So station 1 in the bottom and station 2 up north. 1.58, 1.6 miles is roughly the distance from fire station number 1 to the furthest point in District 1, furthest part of this South Redondo. The fire assessment talked about converting the harbor, station 3, to more of a paramedic. This is what you would get if you do a 1.5 mile radius moving out. You see a lot of coverage in the central part of Redondo for paramedic services. If you were to create a South Bay Fire District, well, the problem with that is Manhattan Beach, which is the closest one to us on Marine. That's as far as it would move into our area of operation in Redondo. I want to make sure it's clear we have a great relationship with Manhattan Beach. We use their equipment. We have mutual aid. We are in their city. They're in our city almost every single day, from what I understand. The very bright green on top, the city of El Segundo, that's the closest fire station to Redondo. They're 1.58 or 1.6 miles, let's just call it, wouldn't even touch the Redondo Beach. Wouldn't even get to our borders. And of course, I'm not mentioning Hermosa because Hermosa is county. If this was a county option, I want to make sure everyone understands that if the county option happens, the reason why you look at this is because we have our 2 fire stations in the central parts of our city, which overlapping in the middle. And you have the county on the outskirts. So that means if you live in North Redondo, a northerly part of Redondo, you live in central portions of Redondo or the far southern portions of Redondo, like the Riviera Village, you'd actually be closer than the 2 fire stations that we currently own and operate in Redondo. So it's about understanding the areas of service, and that's what this negotiations is all about, is trying to understand. So the last thing I have to say here for this is just to thank to all the employees, the executive team. I'm excited to be able to take these next steps and give a real commitment to our fire union employees and employees of fire department as a whole. It's gonna take a lot of money and a lot of time moving forward, and that's why we're here. So hopefully that gives a good overview. All right. That's all I've got to say. I've got some follow-up questions a little later on. Councilmember Lowenstein, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks for that comprehensive presentation. I will talk without the aid of subtitles. So first I want to start off by saying Mayor Pro Tem Nierenheim and I served on the subcommittee for fire along with the mayor, Mayor Brand. So this has been a long time in coming, as Mayor Pro Tem Nierenheim so succinctly put. We haven't been to this stage yet. This is the first time the county has come here, and I want to tell them how much I appreciate them coming to present. I want to start off by saying this item has been wrapped up in politics, unfortunately. And I want to assure the public this. It's our fiduciary duty to look at running the city as efficiently and safely, let me put emphasis on safety and safely as possible. So you will not hear politics or you will not hear demagoguery out of me in playing on people's fears. This is our job. We do this like we do other things in the city. And the job of council is to marshal the resources of the city, but also do so in an efficient manner and do so responsibly and not to stoke fear in people. I want to take politics out of this entire decision. So I want people to understand that. I hope I don't see this, and I don't think we will see this out of any of the other council members up here and the mayor. Our job is to do the right thing and to improve city services. And if it leads to as good or better services at a lower cost for us, great. If it doesn't, then we're going to make that decision. We're going to go that route in terms of deciding the right path for the city. So I was hoping that maybe somebody from the county might be able to come up and speak to a couple questions, if that's okay. Mr. O'Brien? Mr. O'Brien? Okay.
Chief O'Brien.
Chief O'Brien, sorry. So I don't know how much you were prepared to talk about this tonight, but I wanted you to take us through where we've been in terms of phase one and then phase two for the community, for people watching at home and also people in the audience here. Could you just give us, 30,000 foot overview of where we've been and where we're going if we decide to go with phase two?
No, absolutely. And I think first and foremost is, as been said through all the reports and presentations up there, this truly is a community decision and what's best for the community and you acting on behalf of the community. Certainly County Fire is not here to sell anything. We're just providing a proposal. So initially we were approached and provided a model of what the city's running. And we were asked, what do you think of that model and what could you do it for? And we've done this across the board. Currently we have 11 what we call fee-for-service cities within the fire district. We do provide fire services to 60 of the cities within Los Angeles County. However, those that come into the district after the passage of Prop 13 have to be fee-for-service cities. The others are general property tax cities. So of our 11 fee-for-service cities, we look at the model, we look at where the city is, we look at the surrounding resources that we have, and then we present to them what a consolidated fire protection district could look like. I think in a perfect world, consolidated fire protection districts would ultimately result in stations being moved to create that perfect alignment. But generally speaking, we deal within budgets and budget constraints, and we look at what's out there. So when looking at the city of Redondo, we did look at what the city currently offers out of its 3 fire stations. We overlaid the county resources that are nearby, and we provided a proposal that provides what we think is sufficient resources being able to come in Redondo without reducing response times or jeopardizing public safety.
Great.
Increasing response times.
Without
increasing response times.
Well, I'm sorry, without increasing response times.
So how many municipalities are there in LA County? Is there 88?
88 cities.
Okay, so you represent 60 of the 88 cities, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. To your knowledge...
how many of them are contract cities?
We have 12 are the fee-for-service cities.
Okay. To your knowledge, is Southern California and California unique in that that a lot of cities don't have their own fire departments? I know where I'm from outside of St. Louis, there's a fire protection district in the area I live in, which encompasses a number of municipalities. Is that common in the nation, or is it more common that you have cities run their own fire departments?
I think when you look throughout the state, there's an equal amount of fire districts as city-run fire departments, definitely within the LA County metro area, if you will. You definitely from the formation of cities and their foundations, a lot of them had their own city fire departments. However, over time, those city fire departments transitioned over to the county, and hence our buildup to 60. So I think it's a fair mix throughout the state, but definitely here within LA County, you have a defined split of either LA County Fire or their own fire agency.
And of course, CAL FIRE in rural areas and other places like that.
Yes, CAL FIRE has a responsibility for what are known as state responsibility areas. So much like LA County Fire. LA County Fire is a contract county of CAL FIRE, so within the county of Los Angeles. LA County Fire is responsible for all the state responsibility areas.
So Chief, without, injecting opinion in this, some of the cities that have gone to county, what are some of the reasons that they looked at going to county versus, say, maintaining their own? Is it something that you have experience with in terms of these cities talking to you and saying, hey, we're having a hard time keeping up, or we wanted increased services? What has it been?
I think it's across the spectrum, to be honest. You have some of our areas where the cities wound up with financial concerns, and coming over to the district saved them quite a bit of money coming over to the district. You have other areas that had operational concerns related to the ability to have sufficient staffing. And then you have other areas that have come to the district simply because of the resources we have and what we can do for their area, especially in some of the wildland areas of the county.
So if we decided to go to phase 2, what's the time frame? How long would it take? What would be presented to the council in that time frame, when that time frame's up? And what would be the next step if we decided to take a next step or didn't decide to take a next step?
So what phase 2 of the survey is we've provided that initial brush of what we think. Phase 2 allows us to go a lot more in depth. We'd have our folks from our construction and maintenance division go through each of the fire stations with a fine-tooth comb, determine what needs to be done to that station to bring it up to the county standards. That's much why you saw Hermosa Beach and what they did over there. They'd actually had a second story on that station that their firefighters had built on that station, but in looking at that assessment, that needed to come down, and we needed to bring the station into compliance with ADA standards and all the other safety standards that were mentioned earlier. In addition to that, we'll have our fleet services come out. They'll look at all of the rigs. They'll do a head to toe on those and determine what needs to be done with those rigs to bring them into county standards. We generally like to have a set standard of operation amongst all of our resources. However, when new rigs do come into the district, we try to bring them in their current shape, get them up to our standards. So many of the stuff like the radios, communications equipment, those are primarily the big asks that go into those rigs. And then in addition to that, we're going to work with city staff looking at all the personnel and what those personnel coming over into the district would cost. I mean, I think one thing that we do look at is anytime the district takes a city over, there's not a single employee that's left behind unless there's reason for that employee to left behind. So everyone from your firefighters to your clerical staff would be offered a position within the county if that's what they deemed desirable to them. In addition to that, so we covered stations, covered the fleet, we covered personnel, and then the communications is the other big one, converting everything so it's compatible with our dispatch center.
So in some ways, it's just the same firefighters change and personnel changing uniform. But
correct.
And staying.
Change uniform, change badges. Generally speaking, because I did hear it as a concern, so I'll address it. When we do come into a city, we do displace all of the firefighters with the exception of one engineer on each shift. And so we'll shift them to other fire stations throughout the district, primarily for the integration and the learning opportunity. However, based on our current staffing policies, they do have what are known as bid rights. So after 1 year in that position, they'll be able to bid any open spot within the district. District spots are filled by seniority. So based on their seniority, they'll be able to bid any of the available spots within the district. And to that point, the agreed upon number of folks that come over into the district, they are placed into seniority within the district as to when they were hired. So if they were hired by Redondo Beach in 1990, that an individual, they'd come over into the district and their seniority would dip them into the middle there as if they were hired by the district in 1990.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. So how long does phase 2 take?
Phase 2 can take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. Chris is my expert on that. Yeah.
Okay.
2 to 3 months to get that done.
And a report would be presented then?
A report would be presented, and then that's when it would become actionable for folks to kind of make a decision. In that report, it would really kind of lay out the conversion costs, getting the stations up to speed. And that's where negotiations would additionally happen. You know, we gave you our swath of what we think the city needs in terms of resources. That's all a discussion that can be had at that point after phase 2 is completed. If you decide, hey, we really want to make the quint, a paramedic assessment quint, that can be factored in and costs figured out. And, you know, again, it's kind of a concierge service where we can cookie cutter however you would like to tailor to your city.
Okay, just two more quick questions and then I'll be finished. You do community events much like our fire department does as well too. Open houses, outreach to schools, et cetera, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We do many fire service days coming up. All of our fire stations will be opening to the public. We do some regional fire service days as well, where we bring out many of the specialized equipment that Los Angeles County Fire has, such as our urban search and rescue units, type 1 hazmat units, our air operations. We'll bring our Firehawks in, et cetera.
And just for the public, which of the communities, surrounding communities within, say, a 5-mile radius are actually contracted out with county fire?
Within the 5-mile radius of Redondo, obviously you have Hermosa, you have Hawthorne, you have Lawndale, you have Gardena, and then Palos Verdes Estates. Pretty much all of the hill is LA County.
Okay, great. Those are all my questions for you, so thank you.
Perfect. I hope I was succinct enough there.
Yeah.
Quick follow-up questions. So we wouldn't even go into any type of financial discussion until after phase 2 is done.
That's correct.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that. I see. Is the process different than what, has it changed much since 2019 when we first did this? I have the process sheet here. Is it essentially the same?
It should be pretty much similar. I mean, we gave you a swath of what we think putting in and what it would cost, but the true finances come after we have all of those conversion costs done from phase 2.
Right.
But the proposal that was in the packet for today recognizes 23, 24 salary rates on what it would cost for us to do if we were to come into Redondo Beach on July 1 of 2023 and provide service for that calendar year. So that's what you're seeing in that cost proposal.
Yeah, I should just make sure the council was aware. There was a blue folder item. We received some additional material from the county today, I believe, that we've included. So there's a revised and updated cost proposal there, just for your reference.
Is there a cost comparison, or is it basically just here's what it is, and then we would do a comparison with our budget? Because if you understand what I'm asking for.
Yeah, no.
The deep dive into our budget might not be something that's in your wheelhouse or not. I don't know.
Yeah, in Chief Maroney's February 10th, 2023 letter to the city, he did provide that comparison between what Redondo Beach currently staffs budget-wise and then what the district would have provided. The big difference there is that was in $23 for the fire district. We wanted to make sure that for tonight you had the updated figures for 23-24.
Okay. The question I have then is more directed towards the city manager. A third-party consultant would also do a deep dive into those figures, right?
Yeah, that's, I think, what the third-party consultant ultimately provides in this sort of research and review. They can independently look at the two cost scenarios, compare and contrast the two operating models, and look at what those what those two provide.
So tonight would be our opportunity to, if we decide to have you go back and get formalized proposals from one of the three, we would provide you with some criteria we'd like answered as part of any type of
yes,
proposal.
if there are specific questions you'd like the third-party consultant to respond to, we can ensure that in our cost requests that we're clear that that scope of work would be included and that we have assurance that they would provide that sort of analysis for you.
Okay. That I would like to do, I guess, after everybody else has a chance to speak, because I have a number of things I'd like to address. So.
Yeah, it'll be a separate. Yeah, we'll be part of it. I got something right now, but
yeah. Thank you.
Real quick, also. You know, workers' comp, last time a big deal was made about workers' comp. When discussion was made last time about workers' comp. So if employees move over, if we go with you guys and employees move over, how much are we responsible for their prior history of workers' comp and employment versus that point in time moving forward?
So it would be like anything. The day we start our contracting, anything new beyond that, we're responsible for. Anything prior to that, you're responsible for as the city.
What about issues such as, I forgot the term I'm looking for, long-term, lifetime
benefit.
Yeah, benefits. We deal with, accumulative. Thank you. Looking for lawyers.
I'm guessing.
And so certainly we can have further discussion on that, but it's my understanding that if what they had at the time we took over that would be back to the city. So if they had, they'd go back to their medical charts, see what percentage it was, all of that stuff, that would be the city responsible. Anything new moving forward would be on the district.
Right.
And that holds true with any liability for anything relating to EMS calls, lawsuits, et cetera. It's that cut point right there. And so certainly that's a liability component as well, is, lawsuits from accidents, malpractice, et cetera. That would be all shifted to the district after that transition date.
Right. And we get credit. When you come through and do your phase 2 analysis, we get, oh, my finger's working again. It's a cost and credit, right? So we just bought a brand new fire engine, $1 million. Actually, it's a $10 million fire engine. It's got the best one out there. Never going to find
It's
a better
amazing
one.
how those things jump from 250,000 to like $1 million.
10 million. We
10
got the
years.
best one there is. Could be here in 6 months. All the bells and whistles.
I love it.
We're going to get $10 million worth of credit. My point is we get it cost and credit, right? So we have this equipment, we're getting credit for that in the bucket. How does that work? There's going to be questions on that. How does that work?
So there'll be costs and credit. I'll turn to Chris just to make sure I'm not misspeaking because I don't want to have anything I have to come back on. But certainly it is a cost and credit. They looked at the depreciation of the fleet. They look at how much that lifespan is, and then that's the credit they get back. So certainly for a brand new fire engine, you would almost be kind of set at that zero phase for that credit back. So you'd be credited as basically having a new fire engine versus an older fire engine that's going to need to be replaced sooner.
Okay. It is a Long Beach spec. We'll take 10 grand off for that. All right. That's all I've got.
I have a question actually about that same thing. So
you got the floor. Your hand's up.
thank you. So for the conversion costs, you said there's the cost credit. So the credits are going to be our assets, the fire engine. But the costs then are the conversion costs, what it's going to take to get them into county code, but also the buildings.
Correct.
So updated windows, new urinals, those ones looked gross.
Yes. I mean, and that being said, we're very reasonable.
Okay.
I mean, if the council has that opportunity and would like to, I mean, go take a look at the station in Hermosa Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And that was essentially what was required over there to bring it into code compliance and make it safe, effective workspace for our firefighters.
Okay. And so we don't have a general number, that's just what's going to come in phase 2.
Yes, in phase 2 or construction and maintenance, you'll have a set number that it's going to cost to convert and come over to the county, and then that fee is payable over a 3-year lifespan.
And that's going to be for all 3 stations.
That's going to be for all 3 stations, all the equipment, everything.
Okay.
It's going to be a total number.
All right.
And then obviously, again, a lot of this then goes after phase 2, as I kind of alluded to, that's where some of the negotiations start. Maybe some of those renovations to some of those stations, the city would prefer to handle on their own and just get them to that level and not have the district handle it.
Right.
And in some cases, that may be more cost effective. There's some things that might be more cost effective for the city to do. There's other things that's more cost effective for the district to do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But again, really until phase 2 is done, we don't have that defined.
Can I ask you about dispatch then?
Yes.
So, I had like a personal story where my daughter had a seizure. We were near, I don't know, I think West LA. So I don't know what jurisdiction that is, but, called 3 times, 2 different phones, no one picks up. We ended up just driving her ourselves to the ER. So when we came to Redondo, that is something that was important to us. We got a landline so that when we make a phone call, it's going directly to local dispatch. How does that change when we go to county?
So the aspect that changes is by law in the state of California, every 911 call has to be routed to the primary public safety answering point, and that always has to be law enforcement. Mm-hmm. So a call placed in Redondo Beach, either via landline or cell, because now the cell technology is good enough, it pings location, and based on location, it'll direct it to the closest PSAP or the most appropriate PSAP. So all 911 responses in the city of Redondo Beach will still go to the Redondo Beach Police Department. Redondo Beach Police will then hit a transfer button that transfers it to LA County Fire Dispatch.
Okay, so then they'll have to transfer it to county
Yes.
from there.
It gets transferred from the law enforcement public safety answering point, and that's throughout the entire state, and it's state law.
Okay. I have other questions, but maybe not for you.
Okay.
I guess this is for council or Mr. Wazansky. For the subcommittee that was created for fire, it sounds like in 2018, was there an event or some kind of issue that occurred to push us to look for other options for our department?
Well, I think there was a confluence of events and activities that perhaps pushed for that consideration. At the time, the city was in a bit of a stalemate with association negotiations. There were some frustrations about the status of our contract and our MOU. So that rised to a bit of a public and political boiling point. There were some additional, I think, events in the broader community that drew some interest in perhaps looking at the county. And for whatever reason, this community over the years has continued to grapple with that exploration, and we've never really finalized it. When Hermosa proceeded back in 2015 and 16, I think it was a logical question raised by the council. Well, what about Redondo Beach? What makes us different than Hermosa's particular circumstance? And as John mentioned, that there is clearly each city is unique in their level of need and desire. Every circumstance is different. And that's ultimately why it's important that we analyze our options as completely as we can before making a determination. I think a lot of what has occurred over the years, absent some of that final information, is speculative. And people tend to be hopeful or look for information that might ultimately confirm whatever presumption that they might have. And I think ultimately working through this analytical process, bringing on a third-party consultant will allow us to eventually put that to rest and to know completely what our options are and what the pros and cons of each option might be. And that's really why we're recommending what we're recommending.
So when we do phase 2 and the numbers come back, are we going to be looking at apples to apples, like for like? Because with the proposal we have here, it suggests a reduced staff and equipment model.
It does.
Yes.
And that's related to the consolidated fire protection with the surrounding resources all being able to merge into Redondo Beach. So when you say we can give you the exact apples to apples, if that's what the council asks for, we'll provide exactly what you currently have now and what that cost is. But again, our cost proposal is based on that consolidated fire protection approach in which you're surrounded by resources which can all come in as well.
Okay. I think that's all I have for right now. I'll probably have others, but.
I got some questions.
Sounds good. Mr. Kemples, do you want to come down and speak for real quick, or do you have to go, or no? Are you okay? All right, Councilmember Baji.
Sure. Thank you, Chief O'Brien, for being here. Question for you is, some obviously celebration has been made about our fire department going to be becoming a Class 1 fire department. I think that's an insurance rating. I just did the Google search and saw that LA County was rated a Class 2. Is there any kind of importance that should be put on that? And obviously, we'll explore that more with our is that the class rating that LA County has, and should that weigh heavily in our minds?
Yeah, in this area, we are a Class 2 department. Primarily, Class 1 departments have certain staffing requirements to meet that Class 1 threshold. Exactly what the Class 1 does with the insurance raters, I cannot personally speak to. I can just define that we are a Class 2 organization. And again, given the vast area that we spread or cover within LA County, we have some areas that are actually Class 3 and some of the outlying areas where we just don't practically have a fire station as close in a metropolitan area like this. But ISO does divide all of the areas of LA County, looks at our metro, suburban, and rural areas, and then parcels those out. So in this area, it's Class 2.
Okay, thank you for that. And I noticed that the first quote that we got put the county quote at phase one at 18.655 million. You kind of addressed this. We got a second one at 20.128, and then we got a third one, this most recent one, at 20.274. This is kind of a scary precedent for us to be starting with, just because it's jumped so dramatically, right? I think almost a 20% increase in that short period of time, or I don't know if that's 10%, I got my math off, but it's a significant increase. So what kind of changes in the cost do contract cities have on a year-to-year basis? And is there do we have any control over that, or is that just a quote that you guys are giving us? And then we got to take whatever fee you charge.
So again, we try to be as transparent as possible. As I had indicated before, the original letter you received with Chief Maroney's proposal was in $22, $23.
Right.
Our members did receive a COLA that will be going into effect for 23, 24. So we wanted to make sure to factor that in, as well as the latest projections with CPI and what that did to inflate. And I believe that did take it up about 7.8% in that increase. And then that third proposal that came in, there was a clerical staff error on the cost of the boat and what it costs for that paramedic to be on there. So that's why you got that third proposal that brought it up, that additional $100,000.
Right, 145. Okay, and Mr. Wazanski, based on the original numbers taken by in Interim Chief Maroney's letter about our budget, and comparing that to this new proposal, I see a difference of $3.2 million between what we're spending currently, not taking into account any additional expenses we may incur relative to the next contract, and what the county is proposing in phase one of $20.274 million. Is that right? $3.2 million less in the city as is?
Well, yeah, I can understand why that analysis would be made. The one distinction, and we try to make this point in the staff report, and I think it's very important that everybody understand this, our $24.5 million city budget, our total budget includes $3.3 million of fixed pension bond debt service costs. So when we look at this from a comparative standpoint, and again, I didn't want to get into that detail tonight because tonight isn't necessarily the compare and contrast night, but it's important for people to understand the $24.5 million figure includes $3.3 million of fixed pension debt service costs that will remain with the city regardless of our choice on service delivery.
Okay,
so our actual number, our net operating number, which we reference in the staff report, is the $21.2 million. That's the figure that you should ultimately be thinking about from a compare and contrast standpoint as we move forward. We'll get into more specificity about that as we go through the next phase.
Okay, now I see why you said it was about $1 million difference.
Right.
All right, and then a final question for Chief O'Brien, just as it concerns, that you guys, for example, would only have one engine company at Fire Station 2, one engine company at Fire Station 1, I believe, based on my review of that first letter from the interim chief. Is that, and that's just to put it in lay terms, that's because you have other fire stations around in Hermosa Beach and otherwise that could converge on the area if more than one engine was needed in the area. Is that right?
That's correct. So the proposal at Station 1, you'd have an engine company, a Quint, which is a ladder truck that has a pump and has that ability to pump when that engine's out. You'd have a paramedic squad, and then at Station 2, you'd have a engine company and a paramedic squad.
Okay. And then one last question. Currently, the Hermosa Fire Station cannot serve under their contract. They cannot serve outside of the city of Hermosa, right?
When you say serve outside the city of Hermosa?
Yeah, I understood that they had a restriction in their contract where they didn't want their fire station, their LA County fire stations making calls outside of the city's boundaries. Is that right or no?
So utilizing our FSOs, Chief Bennett, is that accurate?
The squad or paramedic squad. The engine does go to outside.
So the paramedic squad within Hermosa is restricted to the city of Hermosa. The engine company does obviously respond outside. I mean, we do auto aid with Redondo. We do auto aid with Manhattan Beach and They do occasionally come into other areas of the district. It is a priority move-up station, so if that engine gets there and is going to be working for any period of time, our dispatch center immediately places another engine into that station.
All right. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate kind of the non-sales pitch that you're giving us, the transparency that you're giving us, and your service in public safety.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Barron.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, Chief O'Brien. I had a question for you regarding the Phase 2 study.
Yes, sir.
Specifically, as part of this Phase 2 study, do we get all of your work product, all of the district's work product and assessments that go into its final number? Do we get all the details? Do we get the full packet, or is it more truncated, conclusory statement of cost at the end? Do we get everything, or sort of just the high-level summary?
You will get a complete, thorough report, Chris. There's no documents that we would hold back. We don't have a reason to. So.
Okay. Yeah, because you had mentioned you go into each and every fire station. You would do, assessment of equipment and capital improvements, et cetera. And regardless of where the city of Redondo Beach may ultimately end up, I think we'd benefit to see that work product and have an understanding of what you found and what your colleagues found as part of that assessment.
Yeah, and everything there, you'll have a comprehensive punch list indicating exactly what we feel needs to be fixed and exactly how much that'll cost.
Okay, that's great to hear. And if Interim Chief Butler is available and could come down, I did have just a few questions for him, if I may, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
Yes, sir. This is Interim Fire Chief Patrick Butler, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Interim Chief Butler, you're familiar with the Kaufman-Castro report from, I believe, last April. And in the forward to that report, and I just want to talk to you about kind of process within our department. In the forward from Interim Chief Keith Kaufman, he stated, "You'll never be able to convince me that it's a good idea to roll 2 paramedics in a rescue rig, 1 captain, 1 engineer, and 1 firefighter paramedic in an engine, or even worse, a ladder truck, and 2 contracted EMTs in an ambulance to a basic life-saving call for someone with a minor injury. Yet here in Redondo, we do this about 15 times a day. Rather than questioning the decades-old system and seeking best practices and potentially new operational efficiencies." How do we address that? Where are we? And what are your thoughts on that statement?
First of all, I disagree with that statement. I'll just plainly tell you up front.
Okay.
Modern, and I can proceed if you like.
Please.
So I worked in another department prior to this, spent 32 years, and I have a very good upfront and personal view of what it takes to save people's lives on the streets, just like we do in Redondo, just like they do in LA County. The modern medical treatment in the field has progressed to a point where most emergency room doctors feel that patients have the best chance for survival when they're treated in the field by trained, qualified paramedics with all their equipment. And if you think about what it takes to save a life, I can give you just a basic, someone's gonna do CPR, but we also have equipment that helps with that. Someone's gonna administer narcotics and drugs that might be needed. Someone's gonna be involved with scene safety. Someone's gonna be involved with making contact with a hospital. Someone's gonna be involved with all the other logistics it takes to save a human being. And so it's a common question in the fire service, why did 5 people come through my front room to save my husband's life? But the end result is we saved their life. And about 80% of them recently, we have some good case studies in Redondo Beach, have come back and made full recovery because we deploy that level of care. But that's not just unique to Redondo Beach. That's kind of a standard in emergency medicine. I think a lot of it comes from public education, but also from an understanding that, you know, the boots on the ground know what it takes to do. In my 6 months here, I've had 4 people walk into our fire station. They're called Heart Warriors that said, in Redondo Beach, you guys saved my life. And it's because of that level of deployment. But once again, it's not just unique to us. Other agencies provide the same model. And I think a public perception is that a large percentage of our calls are EMS, and we save a lot of people's lives in the field with what's called standing field treatment protocols.
Okay, thank you for that. Up in District 5 in North Redondo Beach, we have Northrop Grumman. Any thoughts on whether there would be available, and if so, whether North Redondo would benefit from perhaps a temporary fire station at Northrop Grumman, maybe to lessen response times? Are there any other benefits?
Yeah. In my time here, it's been anecdotally spoken about a lot. Prior to my arrival, that Redondo would benefit by having a resource closer to that part of your district or that district. Northrop Grumman in the past has had discussions. There's some available property out there. And so I think looking down the road, if that's something in this assessment with these consultants that we look at to say, what are some other models to look at? But certainly I think there would be a benefit to taking the resources that are at Station 2 and at least taking it and putting, as was shown earlier about the concentric rings, is a station on the outside end would benefit. And you could probably walk in any fire station in Redondo, sir, and they'll probably tell you the same exact thing here. It's not something that I made up myself. It's something that firefighters have come to realize.
You're not going to take all the resources from Station 2, are you?
No, we're going to evenly distribute them.
And put it up there, right?
Thank you, Interim Chief Butler. One other quick question. We've been speaking a little bit about facilities upgrades, and any thoughts on, you know, just based on your experience and being involved over this period of time, where we may benefit, where the city may benefit from facility upgrades at some or of these stations?
Yeah, I believe that just in general, some of our stations, just basic facility upgrades for just living conditions, but also I believe some of our stations can benefit from having additional, maybe temporary structures put, like Fire Station 2 on Grant Avenue is a big piece of property with a training tower that should basically be shuttered. And so I think there is latent opportunities to, you know, build within our existing infrastructure, and something also that a consultant can come in and say, hey, these were some facility recommendations. And just like the county feasibility, they'll probably also provide us some type of, you know, discussion on their own proposal. But for sure, I think we would benefit from having an infrastructure kind of policy discussion and putting together a master plan looking forward.
Yeah, thank you, Interim Chief Butler. Mr. Wodzansky, had just a couple quick questions for you, if I may. Picking up where Interim Chief Butler left off.
Sure.
Thanks. Facility upgrades, other operational improvements and efficiencies. Is that something that any of these third-party consultants may have competence and experience in addressing, where they could come in and kind of give an opinion on that as well? And if so, is it better to wait until, if there is going to be a phase 2 study, and I don't know if there will be, would it be better to wait to get that phase 2 study before engaging these third-party consultants to come in and do their work, whether it be addressing costs, operational issues, efficiencies, facilities? That's my question.
Yeah, and maybe I'll answer that in a few different parts.
Please.
The timing of the phase 2 study is going to move more quickly than our ability to execute an agreement with a third-party consultant. So I think naturally, if the council gives us direction to employ a consultant, naturally the county analysis is going to wrap up, I believe, before the third-party consultant's work would be completed. So I think the timing works well to initiate both now, just by way of when we'll ultimately contract with the two groups. As a follow-up matter, you may want to think about the scope of work that the consultant provides. I think first and foremost, we need to ensure that our $60,000 in the budget is sufficient to cover the review of the county option, as well as our own current model. They'll perform basic geographic and community risk profiling. They'll create a policy document that ultimately will allow you to make an effective, objective decision. We need to ensure that that scope of work is, I think, funded and completed. But if you'd like, as part of our request for qualifications and pricing, we could ask them if the council were to expand that level of work, what would that cost be? How quickly could you perform that work? And are you ultimately competent and experienced in providing that type of facility review? I'm sure there are consultants out there that can do that work. Whether it's the same third-party consultant that would opine and review our service model and costing vis-a-vis the county, most definitely there are architectural firms and other groups out there that provide facility review and engineering analysis as it pertains to fire facilities throughout the country. There are definitely consultants that could help us with that. And I wouldn't be surprised if these same third-party groups have an arm or a division within their consulting firm that could provide that work for us.
Okay, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. I think that's all the questions you have.
I got one more question.
Yeah, go for it.
About the administrative report. It says, while surveying city facilities, the district would also begin contract preparation.
Yeah,
Clarify what contract that would be.
Yeah, I think ultimately be the contract for service, but the county's provided clarification to that statement, which I appreciate them doing. It sounds like they would actually provide for us first the results of the survey work, the cost conversion number, and then the council would have an opportunity to evaluate that before they would embark on formally preparing the contract for service itself. It would be better for them to confirm that themselves directly, but that, based on the remark and notation we received from the county following the staff report, I think that is our current understanding. I hope that's correct, Chief O'Brien.
Yeah, that's accurate. You know, it's all tailored to whatever the city's needs are. Some cities want to move forward together. Other cities want to separate the two. The key point is, up to the day of annexation, either side could step out, and so the city could opt out of it. It's just anything beyond, once we move into phase 2, then you're obligated for the fee to complete phase 2.
Okay. One thing I didn't say before was, we're very much in a special spot right now because there's no one here on the executive leadership team, from Mr. Rosansky, our interim fire chief, even us here on the city council, that, this where we are at today is because of, 20, 30, 40 years worth of fire service budgets and decisions that were made. So this is a real opportunity for us to look at this with a fresh face. So speaking of nice, fresh faces, first one up is Kenny Campos, RMH Fire Department.
Sorry, pulling up my notes here.
Captain Campos, right?
Captain.
Yeah, today I'm President Campos. Or for now, I actually go back to work here after this speech, so I'll be Captain Campos another 20 minutes. So Mayor Pro Tem Council, city staff, city manager, thank you for having me here tonight. My name, for everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Kenny Campos. I'm the president of IAFF Local 2787. I represent the 60 members that we're talking about here today that provide the service to Redondo Beach as firefighters. Ironically, a year ago today, we drafted a position letter that has been talked about by Councilmember Obagi. But in that letter, it stated that we needed to move forward with all the options that were on the table, which included an assessment of ourselves, which is over there, a look at the Tri-Cities, as we started to call it, which would be ourselves, Manhattan, and El Segundo, which has since been shelved. It didn't get any traction, sat in a bunch of meetings, didn't really go anywhere with that. And the last option was to thoroughly look through the county study. Back in 2018, it sounds like maybe 19, we went through this again and it got short-stopped before phase one. And there was a whole slew of reasons why that was going on, which included tensions with our association in the city. And I would like to tip my hat to the strides that we've made together to build those relationships and to get to where we're at today. We've done a lot, we've implemented a lot that's in that study, but there's still a lot of work to be had to make us, as our vision statement states, the premier fire department that we want to be. We as a firefighters come to work every day and put our badge on to serve the citizens of Redondo Beach. We all chose to do what we do because we enjoy what we do. We get gratification out of what we do. And as the leader of our union, I feel like we do an exceptional job of what we do. It is imperative that we continue to move forward with this county study to once and for all make a decision of what badge we put on. We come to work and we want a little bit of, we just want to be, we just want to know for sure what our future looks like. We've been going through this for 5 years now. I believe it's owed to us that you guys become educated in this topic through all facts, not emotion, not politics. Put the facts on the table and decide once and for all, are we going to be LA County firefighters? Are we going to be Tri-Cities, which that's not going to happen? Or are we going to stay Redondo Beach? And if we stay Redondo Beach, are we going to be able to become the premier fire department that we've all set our sights on? With that, it is imperative that we do it in a timely manner. Again, this has been going on since 2018. Our members are on this roller coaster ride right now of what our future looks like. This is how I put food on the table for my family. It's a different conversation for us as firefighters. We're not going to tell you which direction to go, but this is our future and our livelihood. So it's important that we get a direction of where we're going to go. So with that, I just encourage you guys to get the facts, ask me questions if you have them. I'll put them on the table factually, keep emotions out of it. And then once and for all, you guys as the 5 council members that represent the citizens of our community that we serve, make a decision for which patch and badge that we're going to wear moving forward. Lastly, again, I just want to, with all this being said, I don't want this to be like a Debbie Downer by any means. I do appreciate the relationships that we've built and the efforts that you, three council members, now 2 council members coming on, are making to make our fire department better on a daily basis. But I'll continue to say there's still a ways to go to become that premier fire department. So please, in an expeditious manner, give us an answer to which direction we're going to be going. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sir, can we please get a question in while you're up there? Mr. City Manager, I'm seeing that you're proposing or you're recommending that we go with the RFQ, request for qualifications, for these third-party consultants. How long, if we approve that, how long will it take to get an RFQ and prices out to these 3 firms that you've identified? And then how long will it take to get a response from them? And then, should we be delaying starting phase 2 with the county until we have the consultant in place? And if so, then when can we expect to initiate phase 2?
Right. Pat, it's a great question. Pat and I have talked about that fairly consistently, and our goal is to try to move that as quickly as we can. That's why we are recommending the request for qualifications rather than a more formal request for proposals from all firms. We believe we can have the first responses to that and options for you for selection at your May 2nd City Council meeting. That's our goal. If you give us that direction today, we will have cost quotes from each of these 3 firms with a proposed scope of work. and we'll provide you some material as it pertains to what that review looks like. And at that meeting, you can make a selection, and we would come back with a quickly executed contract, and their work can begin. So that is our time frame. And I do think, I guess, to answer the second part of your question, I think give us the direction, move forward with the reimbursement agreement execution. We'll bring that document back. I don't know if we'll have it to you next Tuesday. That's fairly quick for our contract process, but most assuredly, we can have that agreement to you on May 2nd for formal execution.
But we wouldn't want to go through the phase 2 without a consultant in place, or is the consultant going to help us interpret what the county gives us?
I think it's the latter. I think you can let the county start their work, so we're moving things along. The consultant will come on board naturally. They'll receive that information, begin to digest it. Certainly, once you've made your selection, the consultant's going to be monitoring whatever conversations material we are receiving from the county. It will allow them to complete their work more quickly if the county has figures in front of them.
Okay, and let me just ask, I guess, Chief O'Brien, if we get your quote, the consultant says, well, if you want to keep the same quality of service, you're gonna need to have 2 engines at Fire Station 2, for example. I'm not saying that's necessary, just hypothetical. Then do we go back to you and you'll update your quote to reflect that request?
Absolutely. You tailor it however you want the quote to look. If you tell us you want a Black Hawk helicopter in Redondo Beach, we'll put a Black Hawk helicopter in Redondo Beach. It's just going to cost.
All right, just got to have a big RV on it. But, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But it'll look really good out in the marina.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I know we're going to take more public comment, but I'll just make a motion to move forward with the phase 2 county quote and putting out an RFQ for selecting one of these 3 firms or any other that responds to the RFQ for a third-party consultant to help us work through the county quote.
I'll second that, but I got some amendments that I'd like to do to that quote. We'll do that a little bit later, though, as we talk through this.
All right.
Okay. All right. Next up, members of the public. I have no more orange cards.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Wayne Craig, resident of District 1. This issue is very near and dear to me, my family. My cousin actually was the number 2 commander at El Paso Fire Department, which is a large city. It's about 680,000 people. And 4 years ago, when I first started hearing the problems in our local fire department and talking with our union reps, I ran by him some of the issues that were being reported to me. And he was very concerned for the safety of our first responders and for the public in general. So I got more involved in this and actually spoke to a good friend of mine who's now he just retired from, I think, the Orange County Fire, but now he's actually the fire chief in Vacaville. And I've talked to him about some issues we've had here because it's about the same size city. So it's important we do the right thing here. But the most important thing I think what Mayor Pro Tem Narenmeyer mentioned at the beginning of the session was this isn't about politics. And I think it's really about time we put an end to this because this is about public safety and what's right for our community. And one thing that really disturbed me, I saw some comments online where once again, people are trying to stir up this fear and anger and hate. And I'd like to ask a couple questions since our city attorney is here tonight. There's lots of allegations about Mayor Pro Tem because he works for the LA County lifeguards. Mayor Pro Tem is not an employee of LA County Fire. There's no conflict of interest. There's no financial investment that he has in any way, shape, or form. He's not trying to do anything to make money out of it. And I'd just like to put that issue to bed once and for all. He has nothing to do with any of this stuff other than looking at a bid to help our fire service. Now, how we got here is concerning. It's taken a long time. Like I said, I've been talking to the fire guys since 2019. And I think one of the things that really was concerning was, the fire study you mentioned. This was actually turned into the city in October of 2021. So October, November, December, January, February, March went by. So I was wondering where the heck it was. So I made a public records request on March 14th of 2022 last year. And 10 days later, I got a response back saying, I can get a nice copy of this 251-page report for $29.50. They were going to charge me for it. I said, why don't you just send me an email? So after I got it, looked through it, and then I think within 2 weeks later it was released to the public and it was agendized. So I don't know, maybe making public records requests is important sometimes because it gets things going. But again, that was a year ago. a year ago. We should have been doing this a while ago. Anyway, I'm glad to hear that we're finally moving forward on something on this, and how it turns out, I don't know. I mean, I don't think any of us know, really. There's a lot of options we can go with, but there's some serious issues, as Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem said. You had some of your photos tonight. One of the things I wanted to mention is that one of the pictures you showed of the restroom, or the shower room, you couldn't really tell from the picture, but I don't believe not all the showers were even working, were they? So we have a room there with 3 shower heads. I think 1 works, not 3. So we need to do some stuff here to fix our fire department. Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and it's nice to meet you, Councilmember Kaludarovich, and good to see Councilmember Barrett here as well via video. My name is Sheila Lamb, District 4 resident. I recognize that tonight's action that you will take are not, it's not a policy decision. I do support this study, but it is the decision further down the road that is of greater import to myself and other residents. The following are my views on the topic. Before hearing Mayor Pro Tem's presentation tonight, the information provided to the public did not give a clear picture of why the city was considering this feasibility study with the county. Now I know from the presentation that the potential costs for infrastructure improvement and the importance of maintaining appropriate personnel levels are the problem that needs to be addressed. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for putting these issues related to personnel and infrastructure front and center for the public to recognize. It is helpful for the public to hear the context in which these decisions are being made. It seems that the question that remains is this: what are the costs for the city to maintain optimal personnel numbers and infrastructure improvements over a significant period of time? Not just 1 year, but maybe 10 years, 15 years. What are those costs to the city? And is the city prepared to meet those costs? Or are the costs going to be prohibitive? What are the financial benefits then, or other savings benefits of going to the county? And what are the clear trade-offs for the residents? What will the residents need to give up in order to obtain those cost savings as proposed at this point in time and to be determined with analysis? As for the future actions that you will need to take, how will you decide the right course of action? Residents want you to make a high quality. Motion to extend?
Motion to extend 1 minute.
Thank you.
Anyone opposed? All right, go for it.
Residents want you to make a high quality decision that results in minimal errors. Please consider your decision process. Get agreement on the problem. I believe at this point it's determined that it's cost savings, but is that the problem, and are you in agreement with it? Insist on high quality data and let data drive your decision making, not politics. Use specific criteria for making your decisions and identify the clear trade-offs for all the residents to see. Insist your consultants provide high quality analysis for your consideration. Using a high quality data-driven decision process that is publicly transparent will increase the probability of buy-in by all stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come down?
Good evening again, council and staff. Mark Hansen, King Harbor voter. When the fire department assessment was underway, I had the pleasure of meeting for quite some time with Keith Kaufman, and it was very productive discussions that we had. I know that tonight we're trying to focus on process versus policy, but certainly there's been a great deal tonight that crossed that's crossed that line. And I think it's really important, if we're going to ask for phase 2 of this feasibility study, the county needs to understand what our needs are. And I'm not sure those are fully reflected in the phase 1 tables that I was looking at earlier today. Obviously, we voters are concerned about the Harbor Patrol. That's our focus. I can tell you during that assessment process, there was universal concern from the voters that we need 24/7 response from in the harbor, okay? A great deal of our emergencies happen at night. We just had the Matador go down. If we hadn't had quick response for that in those hypothermic waters, we could have easily had four deaths, and there's been numerous other such examples. Voters were very concerned that the response needs to be from in the harbor, not coming from inland, which is a concern at the very moment, or from Baywatch boat that might be down surfacing Marina Del Rey. Our harbor is unique. Voters leave, turn right, and go right along those rocks to head down towards Del Rey. Second item is in Keith Kaufman's assessment. He mentioned the idea of a new harbor director, harbor master, pick a name position. The voters all said, boy, that's something we've been saying for decades. A common comment that's not too far off from truth is there's nobody in charge of this harbor. Obviously, we've had waterfront or harbor directors who do a great job with the leases, but aren't hired with the idea that they know how to manage a harbor. Same can be true of our harbor masters. It used to be the senior most harbor patrol officer is now the fire chief. We hire them to be great fire chiefs, not that they've ever run a marina. And of course, the harbor commission, super smart people, but other than CUPs, they're mostly advisory, and their messages don't even always get through to you guys great. The third and final point I want to make is that we have an amazingly close relationship with our existing harbor patrol. They give their personal cell phone numbers out to numerous of the voters, and see something, say something maybe we kind of don't want to bug 911 about, but if we've just seen a harbor patrol officer's face go down, we call him on his cell. Can I beg you just for another 30 seconds?
Yes, motion to extend 30 seconds.
Second.
Great, thanks so much. So there are times when we might not dial 911 because we're not sure it's a big deal, but when it's your buddy on duty, you call them and say, hey guys, we see something kind of weird down there. You want to go take a look? And any excuse to go run the engines, they'll go out and take a look and see if it's a problem. We've had safety issues where the relationship between the voters and the individual harbor patrol officers have actually, saved people from getting hurt. So anyway, I hope you'll take all that into consideration here as we move forward and kind of make sure county understands our needs. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to come down and speak on this item? Any Zoom comments?
We do have one comment. Sandra Siegel?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Sandra Siegel. Outsourcing fire services to the county is a terrible idea, and wasting money on a feasibility study is a terrible idea. Paying the county to do this feasibility study is akin to paying Deloitte to do a study of your company in order to tell you whether or not you should retain Deloitte for a big project. You can say that the firefighters support this, but that's not the full picture. The firefighters need a career path. The Redondo Beach Fire Department hasn't had a fire chief for years. With all due respect to a long series of acting fire chiefs, not having a permanent fire chief is indicative of a lack of leadership and pathways for promotion and a lack of commitment by the city. RBFD has been underfunded and understaffed for many, many years. The firefighters need more resources, and if you starve them for years, then of course they want to go to county. Stop this analysis paralysis and fully fund the Redondo Beach Fire Department. RBFD holds a hard-earned ISO Public Protection Classification Class 1 rating. Class 1 rating demonstrates quick response to community needs, risk mitigation at the highest possible standard, and a stellar commitment to preserve life, property, and the environment. No divisions of LA County Fire hold a Class 1 rating. You can say that this will save money, but the clear financial winner of this proposal is the County Fire Department. They get our equipment and millions of our dollars every year with a guaranteed yearly increase, and we get what? A promise that we'll get the same service, which you know will not happen when there's a major disaster. As thousands of residents have learned in CERT training, it is not a matter of if, but when we will experience a major earthquake or other catastrophe which will make our lives unrecognizable. When that day comes, Redondo Beach will be at the bottom of the county's priority list because all of those resources will be at the airport and the seaports and in downtown LA and at the refineries, and Redondo officials will have no authority. I read the Phase 1 study, and it does not say that Redondo Beach would benefit. In fact, it says that the city's resources could improve services to the county. Quote, the unincorporated communities of Del Aire, Wiseburn, and El Camino, as well as the cities of Hermosa Beach, Hawthorne, Lawndale, and Palos Verdes estates would benefit from the proximity of the 2 paramedic squads in the city. In other words, Redondo Beach paramedics would be out on call constantly with no time for training as Redondo Beach fills in holes in the county's coverage. In fact, if you look at a map, you'll see a big gap in LA County's coverage area between Hermosa on one side and Hawthorne, Lawndale, et cetera, surrounding Redondo Beach. LA County wants to take over Redondo Beach Fire so that our department can fill that hole so that we can solve their problems, not the other way around. We would be locked into a 10-year
Motion to extend
contract.
for 30 seconds, for 1 minute. Is there a second?
Thank you.
Second.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Opposed.
All right, one opposed. You can go further.
Thank you. We would be locked into a 10-year contract with an annual increase. For the first 5 years, the annual increase would be capped at 5.4%. After 5 years, the formula gets complicated. Pension costs, workers' compensation, et cetera, over which Redondo has no control, would determine that formula. We have a very special fire department and a very special firefighters and paramedics. If we lose this department, we will look back on this as the worst decision ever made in the history of the city of Redondo Beach. And if we decide in the future that we want our own fire department, we'll be stuck with no equipment because all RBFD vehicles, equipment, tools, fixtures, furnishings, and supplies will belong to the county. Mayor Pro Tem Narenheim is an employee of LA County Fire, so he should recuse himself. And Mayor Brand said a year ago that he's been trying to outsource.
You got your extra minute. Sorry. Thank you. All right, let me address some of those comments that you just had. The fire union has emphatically stated throughout the entire process that they have no position. They want to be able to put bread on their table and feed their families and have security in the jobs that they have and be able to put this discussion to rest without politicization. Same thing our city manager just talked about. We want to have this conversation, have the facts on the table. It's why I showed what I'm doing with the presentation. I bet 99% of the residents out there don't know the actual quality and state of our fire stations. We talk a lot about spending money on our fire department, but how much are we actually spending in terms of what we actually need to spend? Or are we cutting ourselves short? The county was just down here a minute ago, and they specifically talked about they are not looking to take us over. They did not initiate this. We did. And I want to make it very clear that the price we pay is the only cost we have. So if they charge us, let's just say $1,000, and that contract is up on Sunday, on Monday morning, we have no extraneous costs. They cover workers' comp, pension obligation, all other extraneous liabilities, past tense. You can just shake your head. That's correct? Okay. So making it very clear for everyone to understand that as in a contractual environment such as this, that they work with other cities, negotiations are all about the terms and conditions. That's why they call it negotiations. We'll be doing this in closed session, talking about the terms and conditions. That's why the city of Hermosa got a 0% loan from the county to redo their fire station for $2.1 million. And all they did was the bathrooms, windows, fixtures, upgrades, make it ADA compatible. So to say any, and I'll just since you brought it up, and it came up earlier, I'll say, yes, I am an LA County Fire Department Lifeguard Division employee, 100%. I cannot work as a firefighter at all. If anyone wants to correct me on that, wants to put a new badge on me and a new rank and a new name and magically go through a fire tower and work one of these fire stations or even Baywatch Redondo, you are completely wrong. Utterly, totally false. You have no idea what you're talking about. And that is exactly those types of comments that change the conversation. And we need to keep it to exactly what it is, the facts. The contract, why we're doing this, the state of our firehouses, and I used houses in very specifically in my PowerPoint presentation because this is where they live for 48 hours at a time. We need to take care of our employees. So when you attack this decision, when you attack what we're doing, you're attacking our employees. I'm standing up for our employees just like the same way I did back in 2019, 2020, when one of the positions was cut off the ladder truck. And it's very important to me that we take care of our employees, especially our fire service employees, because they're there. They're the family. They're keeping us safe. So those are my comments on that. And I read the comments online, and it's exactly why, as our city manager said, we want to keep this discussion purely to the contract, moving to phase 2 and a third party, which I think is very important. Any other members on Zoom that want to speak?
No, there doesn't appear to be, and there are 17 e-comments submitted, 2 in support and 15 in opposition.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember, the last thing I'll say here before I work on this motion is I would like to have a community group like Hermosa did, whether it's a Brown Act group, we can't decide that tonight. We can have a further discussion on that, whether it's a Brown Act group or a task force group, so to speak, with no other council members on it. But I think it's very important we have the community engagement. I'd like to have a discussion on that and have our fire union board or union on there as well, be able to have a quality discussion in the community. This is a community decision. Get information from what people are feeling and thinking, and I think that's a very important. So I'll be having that in the motion that I've seconded and moving forward with. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Speaking of demagoguery, I think we just saw some of it from this Hermosa Beach resident. And I do see the comments. I hear some of these comments. Again, I want to start off by saying should not be about demagoguery. Let the facts, as Kenny Campos said, let the facts lay where they lay. You're doing a disservice for the community to not at least look at this. LA County Fire is well respected in the entire nation, maybe one of the premier organizations, but we have a fantastic fire department as well too. So I'm hoping, although I'm not optimistic, that people will actually look at the facts. And I think that's our job up here to do that. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is cost analysis when we look at a third party. And I think this is what I want us to look at if we throw this RFQ out there, sorry. I want us to look at, as Ms. Lamb mentioned, I'm glad she mentioned it because I had it written down as well too. I'd like us to talk to cities that switched to LA County not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, 20 and 30 years ago, and what their experience has been, A, with response times, but B, with cost increases or cost savings. I think that's important. We can reach out, the consultant can do that. The next thing I want to talk about is the effect that our pension obligation bonds have had on the unfunded liabilities. You mentioned, Mr. Wazinski, that we have $3 million plus every year that we do have to service. I don't know how much of that is actually the unfunded liabilities that have been taken care of, or is it the entire amount of?
That's just debt service payments
Okay, debt
to our
service
bondholders.
payments.
Yeah, that does not include, our salaries still include, new and ongoing pension costs associated with PERS, employer contributions. That's in our salary pro forma. This 3.3 million is just debt service payments.
For the pension obligation bonds.
Yeah.
Okay. For those of you that don't know, I believe it's a year and a half ago, right? Almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We issued, we lowered our pension obligation, unfunded pension obligations by issuing what's called pension obligation bonds. And we lowered the rate that we would pay from 7% down to, I think it's
less than 2.8.
Less than 2%. That will save us $100 million over a 28-year period. It's a huge savings. That's not just for our fire department, that's for all of our pension obligations for our employees. One thing, and I'd like to see what the effect of that is on this. Another thing I'd like to do is, what percentage, maybe Kenny knows this, but what percentage of our calls are BLS and ALS versus, say, fire? I think it's close to 90.
Medical versus fire?
Yeah, I think our fire calls are less than 1%, if I remember correctly.
Less than 1%, okay.
Yeah.
That's increasing, obviously, every year as the population ages.
Yeah.
I want to know, what are we looking at in the next 5 to 10 years?
BCHD and...
Well, I'm going to talk about that in a second, actually.
So you want to look at the, just to make sure I understand this, the progression of EMS calls.
Right.
Based on demographics.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think the firms would do that, yeah.
And the other thing is, I want us to take into account senior housing, including Kensington that just opened a couple years ago. Look at that, as well as any potential future developments, whether it be Beach City's Health District, Healthy Living Campus, or other type of senior housing. Are we seeing an increase in terms of calls?
Right.
And then finally, to Mr. Hansen's comments, Harbor, how do we look at Harbor, what the county does and say, well, I guess, Pedro and Marina are city, right? So it's very unusual, for us.
County.
Is it county as well, too?
Marina Del Rey is county.
Marina's county. That's right. It's not LA. Well, it is LA City, but it's
LA City is Pedro.
Right. Okay. So how does it compare ours to Marina Del Rey in terms of servicing? Because it's really important. Harbor Patrol is very vital to our community, especially the boating community.
So in addition to comparing and contrasting between the two service models, city and county, looking at a comp effectively, Marina Del Rey, just to explore their sort of operating model.
Correct. Okay. Correct. Because, that's the big part of our community is the boating and waterfront, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like us to look at that as well, too. Those are primarily the things that I would hope we would look at when we looked at, besides the typical pension obligations, workers' comp, overhead that's been mentioned over and over again in terms of capital expenditure, equipment, the things that are broken out in our budget, annual budget.
And all great suggestions, and we'll get costs for all of these things. Just want to make sure that everybody understands. We're not quite sure how far $60,000 will take us. I'm hopeful that it's going to be sufficient, but we'll bring back that information on May 2nd, so you know.
Okay.
I just don't want to commit to everyone understanding that we're going to be able to do all of this in the first study. It may be a lot, and if we've got to contemplate expanding that scope, we can do that, but just fair warning, that's all.
No, I understand. It's almost like an audit. Right. I know the Budget and Finance Commission has actually looked at a few of these things, but maybe not in the detail that we need in terms of some of those. And then obviously we're going to get from them response times, everything else.
Yeah, that's going to be paramount, I think, to any of the reviews is the sort of effect on response times, because that's ultimately, I think, the best, most objective criterion we have for level of service.
Right. Thank you.
Can I tack something on to what Councilmember Lowenstein?
Councilmember Baji, do you have something to add? I can't see your hand if your hand is up.
Sure. I don't have my hand up, but if we could also incorporate some cost modeling relative to deploying a temporary station or resources up to the far, to District 5 to reduce response times there with the county, or how the county would, what the response times would be to the far north of our city.
You wouldn't need that because you have the other 2 fire stations adjoining.
Right. So maybe that's it. Right. Maybe it's just, we have Hermosa that can respond quickly, or Lawndale. So what would be the response time to District 5? Station 2 is in District 4. I'm not worried about the response time there. It's how's it going to reach,
Right.
the top.
And are you, just to be clear, are you talking both EMS and fire response? I'm assuming you're thinking about both of those metrics, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Because I think ultimately the analysis is different for those 2 types of response.
Okay, sure.
All right. Councilmember Kalujedovich.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on what you had said about this being, important to the community. Have we talked about putting this on the ballot for them to vote on? When do we need to do that? How would we work on that in conjunction with a phase 2?
You asking me that question?
Whoever can answer it.
I have not specifically thought about the time frame for a ballot consideration. There are some communities that do seek advisory votes from residents as they make these decisions. That creates different consternation. It can politicize the conversation perhaps even further. So there's, I would imagine, pros and cons to that. But have not thought about that in context with this particular review. I think those discussions would occur after we've evaluated the data.
All right. Councilmember Obaji, would you, let me open up my motion I had actually written out earlier.
You want me to withdraw my motion? You just make the motion since you have something a little more detailed?
It's good. We'll go through this line by line. So you had approved the reimbursement agreement and request to move forward into phase 2 of the study.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'd like to agendize, in addition to that, I'd like to agendize a discussion and possible action to come back in May for to have a community group, either a Brown Act compliant community group or a subcommittee group, or what used to be a subcommittee of residents.
Yeah, there's 2 choices. There can be a council-appointed group, which be to the Brown Act discussion that follows a little bit like what we've done with the Charter Review Committee or something light of that. There's also, as I've deployed for whether it be the website analysis or other things, the city manager's working group that I appoint. I do take typically input and advice from the council on perhaps members of the community to consider as part of that. That doesn't require the Brown Acting and the agendizing of materials. But given this type of an issue
You might want to notice it.
Yeah, I mean, as political as this has been.
I'd like to have a discussion on that with the action, have the 2 options there so we can come back, have it first meeting in May. Agendize and third point, would you be amenable to that, Councilmember Baji?
Agendizing a discussion about forming a community group?
Yeah.
That's fine.
And then obviously we have the third-party agreement and scope of third-party services, including station replacement and remodel, negotiation needs, and fiscal needs.
Sure, and incorporate all the direction Councilmember Lowenstein provided, as well as
perfect.
I'm sorry, I got lost in a little bit of train of thought there. Can you back up on that?
Yes.
The last part you made.
The fiscal needs. So when we go into negotiation with the fiscal needs here, what are we looking out for? Helping us out with the negotiation contract portion of the contract.
Oh, in terms of assistance with negotiations, potentially.
And then it does need to be part of this motion, but I can, a budget response report on creating apparatus replacement program for 10-year frontline cycle engines, 5-year relief and 5-year reserve program. and then a budget response report for updating, rebuilding all three of our, updating or rebuilding our 3 fire stations. And the reason why I kind of want to push this is we do have our budget coming up in June. So we need some sort of idea. They don't need to be exact numbers.
Well, what we would do in that is we'd give you a sense of process and probably some rough estimates, and then we would provide for you what our immediate budget step would be to try to move that forward.
Yeah. And knowing that the county, if this budget, if this motion passes, will be also doing their assessment.
Right. The BRR on the vehicle replacement cycle, can we, we'll provide you some context on where we are today, where we've been, perhaps what maybe there might be some standards out there that we could point to as well. So maybe if we can expand your
include different standards and where we are currently and what other cities do.
Mayor Pro Tem, I feel like we're tossing in a lot here into thinking about the phase 2 and overcomplicating it, because those are like separate referrals to staff. And I could think about, for example, wanting updated.
Okay, that's fine. I can remove
fire
that.
assessment now in light of the implementation.
Yeah,
where are we in terms of the fire assessment?
I'll remove
especially in
that
light of-
and do that at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, cool.
All right, that's cool. All right, any more members of the public want to comment?
Can you restate the motion? I don't believe you had a second for Councilman Obachi's motion, so I assume you're seconding it. But given you had so much discussion around it, I don't think we have a
maybe I'll just
motion. And specifically, you indicated Councilman Lowenstein's, you wanted to incorporate that, and what specifically did you
Councilmember Obaji's motion, I seconded it. I'm adding these amendments.
Can you restate the amendments versus the discussion?
Yeah, maybe I can help a little bit with that.
Or you can read it
Maybe
back.
taking notes, yeah. So as I interpret this, we'll be coming back to you on May 2nd with 2 things. Well, actually, three discussion items, 2 action items. The first will be the execution, a processed reimbursement agreement with the county to proceed with phase 2. So that'll be an opportunity for the council to formally approve that document. That's one item. Second item will be the response to our request for qualifications and pricing for the third-party consultant to perform the traditional review that was discussed with the following inquiries of those firms. Cost analysis is covered. I'll just read from my notes down. Assistance with contract negotiations, we'll ask for pricing on that. Some review by the third-party consultant to talk to cities that switched to county, not recently, but decades ago, as it pertains to response times and cost increases over time. The effect of our actions on pension and what we've done on our unfunded accrued liability vis-a-vis perhaps the county as one item. The progression of EMS calls in our community, recognizing our demographics and changing and likely changes to our demographics, the effect potentially on the number of senior housing units.
On our department.
On our department, the number of senior housing units that potentially could flow into that, future development of the community and the impact it would have on our response times and calls for service. The request to understand our current harbor patrol operation, as well as to look at the Marina Del Rey model. This is Councilmember Obaji's suggestion, cost of temporary deployment of an engine to North Redondo on the Northrop campus, Grumman campus or near there, and its effect potentially on our EMS and fire response. And then as a third matter, discussing the concept of forming a community working group and the options that we would have to do that to advise the council on this matter.
Yep. Perfect. Done well. Yeah. Very good. I'm impressed the way you wrote that down on that, and
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that could read the writing.
Yeah,
but I think that's what it says. If you ask me tomorrow, might not be able to decide.
He's becoming fluent in Narenheim.
Oh man, that's a little frightening.
He has the subtitles to follow us.
It's only been 6 years. Right. All right. Any other members of the public would like to speak? Absolutely. Come on down.
Excellent job, Mr. Rosansky. Georgette Gantner. if this just initially, just to sum this, it's really, really, really good to come down to these meetings because then you can hear everything, you can assess for yourself. This is great. I love this. Anyway, if one of the major reasons was the concern about the condition of the fire stations, it seems like there's got to be a much shorter term goal in that maybe there's a bond issue, maybe there's a measure, other sources of income to mitigate that situation. Seems like that would be addressed first. This other issue seems extreme. And what Mr. Hansen was saying about the harbor time, the response to the harbor, for me, that almost like clinches the deal as far as keeping it in the city. Obviously, you guys are going to do a lot of research. It's going to be extremely helpful. My last question is, did anyone ever ask our city firemen for like a poll from the individual firemen as to how they felt about this? What do they want? What do they need? They're living in these fire stations. What's their preferences and what would they rather do? That's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
Maybe Kenny.
Can I respond to that?
Kenny's going to.
Kenny's coming down.
President Campos.
Yeah, President Campos again here. I can respond to that. Our decision.
Speak to us.
Yeah, our decision here is that we're not, it's the council's decision. We've been through this before.
To us.
We know where a decision gets us and, or a favor one way or the other. At one point, if you guys come to us at the very end of this thing and need a decision, we'll contemplate at that point. But for now, the facts need to be put on the table. The emotions need to be taken out. The politics need to be put out. And the five of you make a decision. You guys will be the most informed. That's why we stand where we stand.
Thank you, sir. All right. And when it comes to the harbor discussion, this is a long road. There's a lot going on in the harbor, a lot of other things going on in the harbor that we're moving forward on. Harbor Patrol it's a large part of the harbor discussion, what we're doing down there. So nothing's changing. And this life safety services will be remaining 24/7, 7 days a week.
Councilmember Barron would like to speak now.
Councilmember Barron.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just had a quick question, if I may, for Interim Chief Butler, if he's still with us tonight.
Real quick. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't talking to you. Sorry, I was talking to Todd.
Yes, sir. It's Interim Chief Butler.
Oh, good evening, Interim Chief Butler. As the council is finalizing a potential motion to give direction regarding parameters for a third-party consultant, is there anything you want to recommend we keep in mind? Is there anything you want to say on that issue before we go further?
I think everything that's been covered is pretty well scoped. I can give you a just general sense, but a lot of your discussion points, consultants will come in and they'll do a community risk analysis, which is kind of what Councilmember Lowenstein talked about. They'll do response time capabilities, pretty much everything that was discussed tonight and that the city manager has. In my conversations with these three that submitted interest, this is pretty common for them to do. Everything from municipal budgeting to facilities to infrastructure, and if they've done it once, they've done it 100 times. So to your point, I think the consultants will also, I would hope, are going to be able to tease out other information. But in general, what I have is what they normally do is they'll do data mining, then they'll do a community risk assessment that looks at our long-term risk and what our vulnerabilities are. They'll look at our response times and capabilities. They'll look at a deployment analysis. They could potentially look at standards of cover, look at deployment options, and then ultimately all of them said that they would put together a report, review, provide you a verbal, both presentation and a document. So I think as we proceed, if this motion moves forward, I think these consultants and others, sir, would be able to pretty much handle these tasks.
Thank you, Interim Chief Butler. And Mayor Pro Tem, if I may ask President Campos, Kenny Campos, the same question to get his input before we.
Absolutely. You have the floor.
Okay. All right. And President Campos, we're discussing what parameters, what direction to potentially give either in an RFP, RFQ to these third-party consultants. Is there anything you think you'd recommend that we keep in mind or consider in that regard?
This honestly isn't my expertise. I have done slight research on it just to brush up on it, but I'll just echo what Chief Butler said. He comes with a wealth of knowledge. I don't discredit anything he said there. So I think we can move forward and investigate this a little bit together. But this isn't my expertise of who does what. The only one that I've heard of is Citygate, but it doesn't mean they're the right one or the best one. That's pretty much my input on that, but I don't know them one for another.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, President Campos, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right.
Councilmember Obaji would like to speak again.
Councilmember Obaji.
Sure. To the nice lady who came up and asked those questions, don't think that we're not focused on this. Actually, in my conversation today with the city manager, I said, hey, can we get a VRR? And I've already asked actually for budget response reports about what it would take to build modular fire stations at Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, essentially totally new ones. He responded, we could actually do retrofits of those buildings that are there the way they're doing right now with the police department. They might have completed it. I said, well, make sure we put lipstick on the outside too to modernize them. So we are thinking about that because in either scenario, we own the property and we will continue to own the property, and it behooves us to improve those structures. And so he assured me that in this next budget, as they roll out the capital improvement plan, CIP, that it's going to be public infrastructure focused. So I'm heartened by that, and there is a increased urgency to get that going. And I'll also answer, additionally to what President Campos said, is I think, what he said earlier, which is that they want to be a premier fire department. They want to be part of a premier fire department. So we can't just say, okay, we've hired Chief Butler. And he's gotten into good shape in the Class 1 fire department. That's good enough. We got to continually focus on making it better and making it a top-notch fire department where they feel like they can do their best work. That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, members of the public? Anyone Zoom?
No, there's no one else on Zoom.
All right. Any members of the council? All right. Motion on the floor. It's clear. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
No. All right. Passes 4-1. All right. Next item is mayor and council items, or city manager items.
I'm tapped out this evening. I'll defer to you all.
Mayor and council items, real quick, I have 2 budget response reports. I think you know what they are. Do we need to go over that?
No, I've got them. Fire facility renovations. That would include, to Ms. Gantner's comments, the process is not just for expense, for potential revenue. We would definitely include that.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. I don't have anything else. Councilmember Lowenstein.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Jedovich.
Good. No, I don't have anything.
Councilmember Obaji.
Yes, I would like to agendize a discussion about repealing the ban on dogs in the International Boardwalk and making the restriction that the dogs have to be on a leash.
I second that.
We can have a discussion. Yeah, this is a discussion,
right?
Can we do that after budget?
Yeah, let's do it
after budget. It's not a rush. It's not a rush.
Sometime
I'm not going to get into the reasons why.
August, September, or something.
That's gonna
2026.
That might almost be as controversial as the fire.
It's up there.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
Aye.
Oh, there you go, Scott. Oops, sorry about that.
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have any referrals to staff?
I do. A budget response report with respect to a potential temporary fire station facility at the Northrop Grumman property. If if that's specific enough, if it's not premature to put that out there, I would like to try to get some idea, and that would be city fire department temporary station.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I did have one other budget response report on a completely different topic, but I did want to get it in the pipeline now with the budget coming up. Budget response report for 4 additional traffic patrol officers, police officers, traffic patrol police officers.
Okay. All right.
That's all I have. Thank you. No, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. So that brings us to the end. We are not closing in memory. We are not. We're not going back to closed session. We didn't address a couple of them, but that's fine. All right. So
motion adjourned.
What actually, I'm sorry, before we adjourn, one note, just want to make sure everybody's got it on their calendar, April 25th, we are having strategic planning. I think it's going to be maybe a single day session, probably in the afternoon, working into the evening. So just please make sure that's still cleared on all of your calendars. We can talk specific timing individually, but the idea is we may want to do a long one standing meeting, knock it out, come back with a community discussion at a follow-up council meeting before we formally adopt the plan, so there's time for
You
feedback.
say we're going to have a meeting that night as well, too?
No, it'll be only strategic planning. So it'd be one single, instead of doing it over 2 meetings, we would do one session on that Tuesday,
and then
starting a little bit
follow
earlier.
later.
We would,
So like noon till
maybe more like 3 to 7, 3 to 8, something in that range.
3 to 4.
Well, the council has gotten more efficient. That would be something, but yeah. Just if
You're talking about
strategic
this council got more efficient.
It's strategic planning, April 25th.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Motion to adjourn to the next meeting. And there's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Good night.